Chapter 1261. At this moment, outside the immemorial land, when the human ancestors' team was destroyed, there were also several gazes fixed on this place. It was a majestic place surrounded by white clouds and countless palaces. It was the core of a huge extraterritorial continent, the Eastern Wilderness Continent. This was one of the 33 heavens in the myriad world. Generally speaking, experts from low-level continents would break through the void and ascend to the upper realm after breaking through their cultivation limit. The Eastern Wilderness Continent was one of the upper realms in the myriad world. As everyone knew, this continent was the headquarters of a huge god system in the myriad worlds, the Eastern Wilderness God System. The Eastern Wilderness God System's master god was the Eastern Wilderness Great Emperor. Although this great emperor had become a master god at a relatively young age among many god systems, his strength was not inferior to the veteran masters of the various god systems in this area. In a huge palace that was as large as heaven and earth, majestic and sacred light shadows descended as if they were above the myriad worlds. Master God, do we need to dispatch a small team to destroy these human ancestors? A powerful god with an unusually dense divine light on his body asked in a deep voice. In the palace, all the mighty existences heard this and looked at the majestic existence sitting on the huge throne in the center, who was like a huge sun. As everyone knew, the Eastern Wilderness God System and the Eastern Wilderness God System were mortal enemies. The Eastern Wilderness God System's master god was the Eastern Wilderness Master God. He was also an ancient existence, born in another ancient continent that was not inferior to the Spirit Sea continent in terms of heritage. Because the two had similar titles, they began to fight each other almost as soon as they clashed. The grudge had extended for thousands of eras and evolved into a mortal enemy. There was no end to it. Of course, the main reason was that the two masters had a conflict of great depth. If either of them devoured the other, they could advance further. This god feels that this might be a good opportunity for us, a chance to make the Eastern Wilderness God System suffer a great loss. A huge true god emitting boundless light sneered. If the plan is right, we might be able to kill one of their masters. It's the ultimate Crimson Divine Emperor. Many true gods were unusually respectful. In an extremely huge god system, there could only be one master god. The master god here didn't refer to the realm, but to the position of the master of the god system. In the divine system, only the master god could give birth to other master gods. These master gods were the deputies of the master god of the divine system. Generally speaking, according to the rules, they would be conferred the title of divine emperor. After the master god of life, Lu Qi, had completed her ascension, she would also be called the godly emperor of life by the Eastern Wilderness God System. A huge pantheon was basically intertwined with countless lower continents and upper continents. It had influence in the endless heavens. Although the Eastern Wilderness Divine System had only existed for 1,000 eras, it was one of the most powerful divine systems. It was considered a rising star. Other than the Eastern Wilderness Divine Master, there were 5 other divine emperors under his command. Once the heavenly life goddess completed her advancement, there would be 6 divine emperors. It was rare for a divine system to have 6 divine emperors. The title of divine emperor wasn't an empty title, and it was one that possessed true authority. Only those that controlled more than 36 outer-realm continents under their command had the qualifications to be called divine emperors. Generally speaking, if one had the power of a chief god but did not have a fief, one could only be addressed as an emperor. The one who spoke just now was the ultimate Crimson Divine Emperor. The third divine emperor of the Eastern Wilderness Divine System was also from the Spirit Sea continent. He attained the Tao in the primordial era, and his seniority was even older than the great emperor of the Eastern Wilderness. He was a strong practitioner of the primordial era. Later on, he joined the Eastern Wilderness Divine System. To be able to stand out among the true gods of the various continents in the divine system, the ultimate East Divine Emperor was undoubtedly not simple. Ultimate Crimson, since you have an idea, I will leave this matter to you. Now that the war between the Eastern Wilderness Divine System and the Eastern Wilderness Divine System has reached a critical juncture, the other Divine Emperors all have their own missions, and the other divine systems are all itching to make a move. When the victor is decided, the fisherman will reap the benefits. You have to be careful. A faint and dignified voice came from the central divine throne. If necessary, I will send Divine Emperor Earth Mother to lend you a hand. Yes. The ultimate Crimson Divine Emperor lowered his head slightly. At this moment, he suddenly swept his gaze across a figure in the water mirror in the hall. Your Majesty, what are the arrangements for that Divine Emperor life and that young man? His gaze landed on that young existence in the underworld of the primordial land. Every major divine system had to accept new blood in every epoch. They had to accept a portion of the newly ascended true gods into the divine system to ensure that the divine system would continue to prosper. It was the same for the Eastern Wilderness Divine System. This was especially so for the Spirit Sea continent. This golden epoch was driven by the combined efforts of a few major divine systems in the Spirit Sea continent. Naturally, the numerous gods that were born this time were likely to be the strongest generation after the primordial era. Numerous geniuses and the major divine systems were already eyeing them covetously, each with their own goals. The Eastern Wilderness Divine System couldn't fall behind. In the eyes of the ultimate Crimson Divine Emperor, that powerful junior called the Ninth Underworld King was extremely rare in the primordial era, regardless of whether it was talent, fate, or wisdom. That young junior is not bad. In this epoch, if there is anyone in the Spirit Sea continent who is most likely to advance to the Master God realm, he is definitely one of them. On the side, another Divine Emperor also spoke. His figure was gloomy, and anyone who looked at him would feel as if they were witnessing the end of the world. The terrifying scene of all things collapsing and heaven and earth turning into chaos. This was a divine emperor who cultivated the path of great destruction. His title was Divine Emperor Vanish. His body was shrouded in gloomy light, and his eyes were looking at the changes in the primordial era in the crystal. Billions of lives were born and died in his eyes, as if there was infinite horror. Although he said so, no one could understand his thoughts. On the side, a beautiful goddess spoke softly. This kid is not bad, especially since he has cultivated His Majesty's 8 Desolation Indestructible Heaven scroll. It can be said that he is born with a karmic connection with the Eastern Wilderness Divine System. However, I can see that this kid is arrogant and has the bearing of an overlord. I'm afraid he won't be willing to submit to His Majesty easily. However, we can be allies in the future? Allies? Sister, you think too highly of this kid. On the side, another goddess who looked exactly the same as the previous goddess, but had a different temperament, chuckled coldly. On the side, many true gods heard these two speak, and they immediately shut their mouth. These two goddesses were born on the same continent, the giant god's continent. They were the two sides of an innately born origin god. That origin god was the goddess of destiny, and she was split into two. One became the goddess of fortune, while the other became the goddess of misfortune. Although they both belonged to the Eastern Wilderness Divine System, the two goddesses were usually at odds with each other. These two goddesses were very powerful. When they worked together, even the divine emperors of the divine system would have a headache. The goddess of misfortune glanced at the goddess of fortune, and a cold smile flashed on her beautiful face. This epoch of the Linghai continent isn't simple at all. Countless old antiques have appeared, and there are quite a few who are no less talented than the emperors of the past. Just watch. With that kid's achievements, becoming a godly king in this epoch is already the limit. As for becoming an overgod, it'll probably take him dozens or even hundreds of epochs to have a chance. Chapter 1262. Many gods agreed with the misfortune goddess words. The Lord God realm was not that simple. Among the many gods present, there were many peerless geniuses from other continents. Before becoming a god, there were many who had the ninth underworld king's background. However, before reaching the Lord God realm, they wasted their time. Only a few were lucky enough to break through to the Lord God realm. Recruiting new blood is indeed a big deal. The Linghai continent's evolution is about to reach its peak. The Linghai gods of this era are about to be born. Luck, misfortune, you too pay more attention during this period. If necessary, contact them in advance. Yes, Your Majesty. The Luck Goddess and the Misfortune Goddess walked up the hall to receive the order. Galaxy Continent, Myriad Star Peak. In the Immemorial Land, when Qin Feng took control of the Immemorial Land and became the heavenly god of the Immemorial Land, he was affected. On the Galaxy Continent, Wang Xian had also completed the final deduction. The Star God realm was also born. On the mountain peak, Wang Xian was dressed in white. His aura only trembled slightly at the peak of the Monarch realm. Crack! An invisible bottleneck was broken, and his aura rose abruptly, entering a mysterious realm. Rumble! A sky-piercing blue-green brilliance formed a heavenly pillar that penetrated deep into the firmament. Above the firmament, a huge nebula that looked like a dragon spun violently. Billions of stars shone brightly, illuminating the void as if it was daytime. At this moment, countless experts looked in the direction of the myriad star peak in shock. The white-robed Wang Xian's body began to change in the starlight. Countless tree roots spread out like dragons. In the blink of an eye, Wang Xian's lower body turned into countless tree root. Countless tree roots suddenly sank into the myriad star peak under the horrified gazes of the myriad star sect disciples. They followed the mountain and stretched for millions of miles. At the same time, Wang Xian's upper body was also changing. It turned into a thick tree vine that seemed to reach the heavens. The tree vine seemed to extend into the depths of the firmament and into the billions of stars. In the depths of the nebula above his head, the constellation in the center shone brightly. Gradually, a huge galaxy divine kingdom was born. Wang Xian's thoughts changed. The starlight covered the ground, and the essence of the stars formed the tiles. Everywhere was filled with light and fragrance. The silver buildings, palaces and small buildings, the eaves, windows, and railings were all decorated with various gems. The star-divine trees were arranged in rows, and the heavenly scale ribbons were hanging from their branches. In the center, a vine pierced through the bottom of the divine kingdom and into the center of the divine kingdom, turning into a strange vine tree. The ancient tree absorbed the power of the stars in the sky. It began to blossom and bear fruit. The boundless power of the Milky Way gushed towards the flower buds in the Milky Way kingdom. How terrifying was the power of the Milky Way! It was as if an innate divine fetus had been nurtured by the enormous planet beneath his feet. A strange divine body absorbed the power of the stars and was rapidly reborn. Its bones, flesh, and internal organs quickly turned into an extremely handsome young man in a white robe. Endless starlight flowed into his body. His aura started to break through from zero: human grade, Xian grade, earth grade, heaven grade, monarch grade, peak grade of monarch grade. Without any hindrance, he directly broke through the peak of the monarch level and entered the deity level. The moment his aura entered the divine level, Wang Xian opened his eyes. A trace of divine light flickered in his eyes, and his aura shook. The stars in the sky seemed to tremble violently along with this trace of aura. So that's how it is. The so-called deity level is actually a different path. By combining one's own profound qi with the star martial spirit, it becomes a natal star soul. Then, with the help of the stars and the power of the Milky Way, it goes back to the origin and back to the innate star fetus to be nurtured. This is the innate star god nurtured by the Milky Way. The martial spirits awakened by countless soul cultivators on the continent are actually the astral souls of the stars in the sky. The process of strengthening the martial spirit is the process of strengthening the astral soul. Until the day when the martial spirit and the martial spirit become one and comprehend the true essence of the martial spirit is born as an innate star god. Wang Xian's eyes flickered with a strange light. In fact, on the Milky Way continent, many people had gone astray. Looking for the star ring in the Milky Way was a mistake. The real way to level up should be to abandon the physical body, combine oneself with the star soul, return to the star fetus, and become an innate star god nurtured by the star fetus. That was the real way to reach the deity level. As for searching for the star ring, although it could make the martial spirit extremely powerful, without the nurturing of the star fetus and the nourishment of the Milky Way, one could only be considered a fake true god. At this moment, he could feel that with a single thought, the power of the Milky Way seemed to correspond to him. This power was unbelievably vast. With a single thought, he could destroy a continent, and he could also create a continent. At this moment, in the Milky Way, this huge divine nation had just been born. Only faint starlight shone from the Milky Way. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he spoke. The heavens and earth are divided into yin and yang. Darkness is the back and light is the front. There must be light. As his voice fell, a strange fluctuation filled the entire heavens and earth. Pure light was born in the divine nation. Light separated the light and darkness. Golden mouth and jade words. Wang Xian looked at the huge divine nation. The divine nation was desolate and boundless. There must be water in the divine nation. In an instant, billowing water emerged from the ground and filled the entire divine nation. The entire divine nation turned into a boundless lake. All the water in the heavens and earth, gather and reveal the earth. As his voice fell, a strange energy fluctuated. The water contracted and formed an ocean, revealing the coast and islands. Above the divine nation, life was beginning to appear. There must be trees on the land. Follow their species. In an instant, the land was covered with green trees and vegetation. Wang Xian glanced over with a smile in his eyes. At this moment, after becoming an innate star god, he was almost omnipotent on the Milky Way continent. However, he was not satisfied with this. The Milky Way continent was hidden in the depths of the Milky Way continent. It was probably still a virgin land. Such a place would be discovered by other core gods sooner or later, and they would occupy it. Since that was the case, why couldn't he occupy this precious land first and turn it into a base for nurturing experts? In Wang Xian's opinion, the martial soul system was undoubtedly outstanding. Most importantly, the laws of heaven and earth on this continent were not incomplete. It could give birth to deity positions, although they were all star deity positions. If his main body, Qin Feng, became a core god in the future, he would definitely have to establish a god system. The gods under him could not only rely on the underworld gods born in the primordial land. A true pantheon should be all-encompassing and all-encompassing, with all kinds of gods present. Moreover, after a short period of research, Wang Xian discovered that the Milky Way continent seemed to have other huge secrets and opportunities. Chapter 1263. That secret might have something to do with the celestial ancestor's location. What was the celestial ancestor, the Lord of the Stars? The celestial ancestor was also an over-god. According to Wang Xian's observations, he seemed to be the only celestial god in the billions of galaxies. He was the first celestial god born here. This gave him a chance. He could enlighten the celestial gods and become their guide. The worship of the stars would naturally allow him to become one of the celestial Tao's over-gods through the dedication of the celestial Tao. As the successor of the Xingqian school and the true disciple of the myriad star sect, Coupled with the fact that he was already a celestial god, he was definitely the top celestial Tao on this continent. However, the celestial ancestor's position couldn't be achieved overnight. He had to plan slowly. Maybe I can first become the god of this continent, similar to the primordial land. After I completely control the galaxy, I can enlighten the stars. Wang Xian's eyes flickered. His lips moved slightly, and in the next moment, an extremely vast pressure swooped down from the billions of stars, pressing down on the entire galaxy. On the Star River continent, when they sensed this terrifying power, all living beings prostrated themselves on the ground. At this moment, even the top few monarchs of the major forces were shocked, and their bodies couldn't help but kneel down. They circulated their monarch's power, sweating profusely, and barely managed to resist this terrifying pressure. Countless monarchs' faces were ashen, and they were shocked. That pressure came from the billions of galaxies. Even from such a distance, it still pressed down on them, the top experts of the continent, until they were on the verge of collapse. One could only imagine how powerful it was. I am the celestial ancestor, the master of the stars, the lord of the stars. Today, I have attained the Tao, and I will be lecturing on the great Tao of the star gods in the 33 heavens Taichu Dojo. Those who are fated can come and listen. A loud and majestic voice resounded throughout the galaxy. At this moment, this voice appeared in the ears of countless experts on the galaxy like a thunderclap. In the West Chu Empire's palace, a huge divine aura struck, and many civil and military officials in the main hall knelt on the ground. Even the Guardian Realm experts were sweating profusely. On the throne, there was a domineering emperor with a dignified expression and wearing a dragon robe. The golden halo around his body condensed into a solid substance, barely blocking the majestic aura. The innate celestial ancestor, the master of the stars, and the master of the stars? Emperor Chu's eyes flickered like flames. What a powerful cultivation! This is the power that the monarch-level experts of the past yearned for but could not obtain. How can this emperor not participate in a lecture on the great Tao of the star gods? The peerless emperor laughed out loud. With a flash, he disappeared from where he stood. Within the imperial palace of the great Qin Empire, an old man with pure white hair and beard stood in the air above the imperial palace. He stared into the depths of the void, at the enormous star that seemed to be the leader of all the stars in the world. The innate star ancestor? How dare you call yourself the star ancestor? I don't know where he came from, but since he was the first to break through to the deity realm, he must be someone with real talent. I only hope that he can really teach us the great Tao of the star gods and help us break through to the deity realm. He pondered. Ancestor, should we go and listen to the lecture? Behind him, a group of venerated experts looked at the white-haired old man, their eyes filled with eagerness. A lecture by a deity realm expert could be said to be unprecedented. If the innate celestial ancestor was willing to disclose the secrets of the deity realm, everyone would benefit immensely. Go, why not? Let's go together. How can we miss out on the great Tao of the star gods? The white-haired old man made the final decision. The group turned into streams of light and rushed toward the myriad star sect. There was a vine ladder that could be seen with the naked eye, leading to the Taichu Dojo of the 33 galaxies. Outside the sea, in the depths of the endless deep sea, many experts of the oceanic race gathered in a magnificent palace of the oceanic race. The powerful aura released by the innate celestial ancestor was blocked by a group of oceanic race experts. One of the oceanic kings had an ugly expression. Your Majesty, who is this innate celestial ancestor? How can he be so powerful? The group of oceanic race experts suffered a huge blow. It was no wonder that many oceanic race experts were bent on attacking the Star River continent and occupying those fertile lands and resources. These days, they had won successive battles, and many of the empires and sects along the coast were razed one by one. They were about to take another step forward. They never thought that such a terrifying figure would appear. Across billions of galaxies in the distant void, his pressure made many oceanic race experts tremble and sweat profusely. This was much more powerful than the oceanic race expert, the oceanic race emperor. When the oceanic emperor first advanced, he did not have such terrifying power. On the divine throne, the oceanic emperor's expression changed. This majestic female emperor was as cold as ice. Her eyes changed, and she faintly felt the gap between her and the other party. Logically speaking, there should be no difference between the two of them as immortals. Could it be that there's some trick that I don't know? With a change of heart, the oceanic emperor stood up. Such a great existence has appeared on the continent. We have to pay our respects. Bring gifts, and follow me to the innate celestial ancestors' Taichu dojo. A moment later, in the vast sea, dozens of meteors soared into the sky one after another, flying along the vines of the myriad star sect to the galaxy beyond the heavens. The continent was abnormally lively. From time to time, streams of light could be seen soaring into the sky. Countless hidden experts came out one after another, and rushed toward the myriad star sect. This was the first time the innate celestial ancestor had preached since the creation of the world. Not to mention listening to the innate celestial ancestors preaching, if they could take this opportunity to directly enter the immortal state, it would be excellent even if they could become that great existence's fighter. With such a powerful existence as their backer, even if the oceanic race unified the galaxy continent, they would still have to be polite and wary. Streams of light flew by at an extremely fast speed, rushing to be the first, for fear of missing the time to listen to the innate celestial ancestors preaching. The immemorial land. In the underworld Emperor Temple, the rich starlight around Qin Feng changed, and there was a change that was not inferior to the innate celestial god. A moment later, Qin Feng opened his eyes and frowned. It doesn't seem to work. The power of the stars here is too weak. I can't refine the body of the innate celestial god in a short time like the galaxy continent. But maybe I can do it in the Linghai continent. The Linghai continent has 9 huge galaxies. Although it is slightly inferior to the rich laws of stars in the galaxy continent, it will be easy for me to advance to the celestial god state. Qin Feng's expression relaxed slightly, and a smile appeared between his eyebrows. Thinking of everything in the galaxy continent, he was even more satisfied. Becoming the innate celestial ancestor was a good idea. If he could achieve it, he would have more confidence in his path to becoming the Lord God. Feeling the huge power roaring in his body, Qin Feng's eyes flickered. It's time to return to the Linghai continent and take over the Xingqian school. I may update less today. I need to go to the hospital and have a small operation. I didn't want to say it. In fact, the editor has asked the author to rest a long time ago. He can temporarily stop updating, but the author doesn't like to stop updating. He has been updating for a year, almost 4 times a day. It has become a habit. I have an appointment at 9 o'clock today. I won't say too much. I will try my best to keep updating. I just hope that those who can read the original version will support it as much as possible. Don't let the author's efforts go to waste. Finally, I wish everyone a happy 515 Fan Day. Chapter 1264. The Galaxy Continent, the galaxy beyond the 33 heavens. It looked like it was beyond the heavens, but it was actually in the chaos beyond the stars in the crystal wall system. Billions of galaxies bathed in chaos energy, nourishing the stars and strengthening their starlight. Every star was growing like a living creature. The galaxy continent was quite dangerous. In addition to the countless stars in the heavens, there was also the chaotic wind formed by the terrifying chaos energy mixed with the starlight. The slightest carelessness would cause one to be swept away by the chaotic wind and turn into a dried corpse. although the heaven-reaching vines could reach the Taichu training grounds in the chaos. However, the vines that reached the heavens didn't block out the layer of gray cloud-like chaotic gales in the billions of galaxies. There were 9 layers of wind. It was called the 9 layers of wind. One had to pass through the 9 layers of wind to enter the galaxy outside the heavens. Before long, a large group of experts gathered in front of the gray chaotic wind. The weakest was a Heaven Realm expert, and most were Monarch Realm experts. Among them, there was no lack of peak Monarch Realm experts. Everyone stopped and watched. The 9 layers of wind was no joke. One could lose their lives if they were not careful. Layers of clouds overlap. In the vast and boundless divine nation, the palace gates closed. Extremely majestic palaces rose from the ground like heavenly palaces. At the center was a palace shrouded in faint purple clouds. That palace was extremely mysterious. It was as if the brilliance of billions of stars in the heavens fell on this purple palace. Innate Taichu Palace. The azure dragon star god sat high on a cloud platform. Wang Xian looked down at the 9 layers of wind with a strange look in his deep eyes. To become a star ancestor, one had to first become a heavenly god of the galaxy continent. The reason he could easily reach unification and control the primordial land was because he had made great contributions to the primordial land. He had established the underworld and perfected yin and yang. The primordial land's origin will naturally favored him. In reality, the difficulty of becoming a god of a world wasn't inferior to attaining the Tao and becoming a god in a certain world. In the galaxy continent, Wang Xian had used the power of the creator space to forcefully comprehend the mysteries of the innate star god and become the first true star god in the world. In fact, even so, it was impossible for him to become the saint of the galaxy in this world. However, it would be different with merit. To Wang Xian, educating the stars and helping this world grow was the easiest way to obtain this world's merit. After a period of observation under the strong wind, someone finally could not hold it in any longer. In Wang Xian's eyes, it was an extremely powerful female sea race expert. The Sea Emperor. Wang Xian's eyes flickered slightly. There was also a layer of extraordinary starlight on the other party's body. It was faintly showing signs of merging with a huge star in the sky. He had surpassed the peak of the monarch realm. However, he was still a distance away from becoming a true god. She stepped into the chaotic gales, and there seemed to be an azure star appearing above her head, protecting her body. No matter how many violent gales bombarded her body, she remained unmoved. Countless starlight fell from the azure star, and the chaotic astral winds couldn't get close to her body at all. She traveled smoothly, and in the blink of an eye, she passed through the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds. With a flash of brilliance, a blue star flew into the huge divine kingdom. The Sea Emperor glanced at the boundless and incomparably huge star divine kingdom and was stunned. Then, he sucked in a breath of cold air. To be able to establish such a powerful star divine kingdom was completely beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Although she claimed to have broken through to the god realm, she definitely didn't have such power. Her state of mind was extraordinary, and she quickly regained her composure. She swept her gaze around, and it landed on the many palaces on the cloud platform. She went straight to the Purple Tao Palace in the center. Khanate Origin Palace? Looking at the 5 ancient words on the plaque that seemed to be filled with the rhythm of the great Tao, the Sea Emperor took a deep breath and walked in. Unexpectedly, the palace in the depths of the palace didn't seem to be a simple one. It was like a boundless starry sky. Above the starry sky, there were 3,000 huge stars shining, forming 3,000 praying mats. The 3,000 praying mats seemed to represent the 3,000 Khanate star god. With a sweep of her gaze, the Sea Emperor saw the 14 huge stars at the very front. In the depths of the galaxy, Wang Xian looked at the palace with a deep gaze. The praying mats formed by the 3,000 stars weren't created by him with an exceptional ability. Instead, they were created by the billions of galaxies. On the surface, the 3,000 praying mats looked ordinary. In reality, there was a great mystery behind them. They represented the people destined by the heavens in the billions of galaxies. Once one sat on them, there was an extremely high chance that one would become a Khanate star god in the future. The 3,000 praying mats were just created with the help of Wang Xian, the first Khanate star god. Even Wang Xian himself couldn't control the 3,000 praying mat. Especially the 14 praying mats at the front. They represented the 14 main stars in the billions of galaxies in the future. They had a revered status. They were the rulers of the stars. They were second only to Wang Xian, the Khanate star ancestor. Of the 14 main stars, only 4 had been born. They were the 7 Merciless Star, the Extreme Yang Star, the Extreme Yin Star, and the North Star Star. The 7 Merciless Star was a star formed by the baleful aura of the heavens. It controlled the murderous aura of the heavens and earth, and it was difficult to subdue it unless one was an unparalleled killing god. The Extreme Yang Star was the king of the Yang stars in the heavens. It was formed by the most Yang Qi of the heavens and earth. Only the purest Yang existences had the chance to become the Khanate Extreme Yang Star God. The Extreme Yin Star was the leader of the Yin stars in the heavens. It was formed by the condensation of the purest Yin Qi. Only the purest Yin women with the most precious pure Yin fate had the chance to sit on this praying mat and try to become the Khanate Extreme Yin Star God. The North Star was the leader of the stars, the ruler of the heavens and earth. The North Star was extremely special. Wang Xian observed that the sea god's fate was rich. Even if he couldn't become the star god of the 4 main stars, he would still be recognized by one of the stronger stars. However, the sea god looked around and in the next moment, his figure flashed and landed on the purple praying mat formed by the North Star. It's the North Star? Wang Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. In his eyes, the praying mat formed by the North Star did not reject the sea god. In his eyes, the fate of the ruler of the billions of galaxies in the praying mat formed by the North Star seeped into the sea god's body and into the sea god's natal star. The rich fate slowly transformed the star. The star started to emit a purple aura and the Imperial Emperor's aura, transforming into the North Star. Admittedly, the sea god had obtained the fate of the North Star, but to become the North Star, it would take a long time to transform and plan. However, in Wang Xian's eyes, even so, this was still very amazing. Previously, I predicted that the Xing River continent would face a great calamity, but I didn't expect that the sea race would have the fate to unify the Xing River continent. However, if I'm not wrong, even if the sea god can unify the continent, it won't last long. In the end, he will still have the fate of a king. If he wants to become an innate North Star god, it will be extremely difficult. However, if he can stabilize his fate, he might really be able to become an innate North Star god. Wang Xian's eyes flashed with a strange brilliance. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, Wang Xian's expression changed and he turned around. Outside the 9 layers of chaotic astral wind, after seeing the sea god calmly pass through the chaotic astral wind, another peerless existence walked out. It was a white-robed old man with a ruddy face and an ethereal temperament. Ethereal venerable, a peerless master from hundreds of years ago. Someone recognized the old man's identity and couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. Ethereal venerable, this was a grand elder of the ethereal sect. He was recognized as the strongest master in the Xing River continent hundreds of years ago. For a long time, there had been rumors in the Xing River continent that this old man suffered a backlash from the heavens when he was comprehending a divine rank secret and had fallen. No one would have thought that he would appear here. Continued with the rhythm of the 4th watch. Chapter 1265. The ethereal venerable's body moved as if he wasn't in reality or in the void. His body flashed, and under his skin, wisps of grayish-white dragon scales grew out. The fierce chaos wind, which was strong enough to tear apart divine weapons, smashed against the grayish-white dragon scales, causing wisps of white light to flash. The chaotic astral winds disappeared without a sound. When the wind was at its strongest, a star also appeared above his head. It was a dragon-shaped star, like a giant dragon roaring at the sky. It's actually the rare spatial martial soul, the spatial rending dragon. Wang Xian was slightly surprised. Regardless of whether it was a tool martial soul, plant martial soul, or beast martial soul, they all had their own attribute. Generally speaking, spatial martial souls were extremely rare. The ethereal venerable was extremely fast, and like an invisible stream of light, he pierced through the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds and entered the divine nation. With someone taking the lead, the rest of the experts couldn't hold back anymore. Many ancient monarch-level experts, regardless of whether they were from the various sects or ancient clans, used their special techniques and swam through the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds. The West Chu Empire's current Emperor Chu, the Great Qin Empire's old ancestor, Cloud Sky Sect's Emperor Ling Xiao, Thunder Mountain's old ancestor Giant Spirit, Feng family's old ancestor Feng Lin, all of them entered the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds. However, the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds weren't to be trifled with. It was extremely dangerous, and from time to time, someone would be swept away by the chaotic astral winds and die without a complete corpse. However, a large number of experts still passed through the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds and entered the divine nation. Feng Yi also made it through. However, Feng Yi was very clear that she could pass through the 9 layers of chaotic astral winds because Wang Xian was going easy on her. Needless to say, the beautiful woman's heart was filled with sweetness. After entering the massive divine country, they followed the faint hint of guidance from the unseen world and arrived outside a quaint purple palace. The palace doors opened wide and the 3,000 seats of the innate origin palace appeared before them. Everyone glanced around and their eyes landed on the first 14 prayer mat. The 14 prayer mats were the closest to the platform where the Khanate ancestor was preaching. They were clearly extraordinary. They didn't see the Ocean Emperor sitting on them. The group's eyes lit up as they squeezed toward the 14 seat. However, in the next moment, everyone's expression changed. Among the 14 seats, other than the one the Ocean Emperor sat on, the other 10 had disappeared. Only 3 were left. Everyone panicked. At this moment, outside the innate Tai Chu Palace, a blazing killing intent that could tear apart the galaxy flashed. It instantly rushed past everyone and landed on one of the praying mat. His hair was red and his clothes were red. The murderous aura between his brows was enough to tear the world apart. It's him, Xue Wuya of the 7 Kills Palace. The expressions of the experts changed. Many powerful existences couldn't help but reveal a hint of fear on their faces. The 7 Murders Temple was an ancient sect. It was one of the super sects of the Star River continent. 1 palace, 2 factions, 3 sects, 4 great factions of the Star River continent. One of the palaces referred to the 7 Murders Palace. Xue Wuya of the 7 Kills Palace was a young heaven-grade expert who had recently appeared. He was active in the battlefield between the Alliance of Nations and the Sea Tribe. Many young Sea Tribe experts had died at his hands. Especially since he had recently broken through to the heaven rank, his reputation was gradually rising. Many of the older generation powerhouses did not dare to overlook this person. This person, along with several other young powerhouses who had risen to prominence in the Star River continent, were known as the 4 strongest young kings. Xue Wuya, well done. Give your seat to me. When we return to the sect, I will definitely reward you handsomely. A blood-haired old man laughed strangely. His eyes were filled with pride. This was an old monster of the 7 Murders Palace, the red-haired old monster. He was also an ancient powerhouse at the peak of the monarch grade. He walked toward the front row in a few steps. However, in the next moment, his expression changed. No matter how he walked, he found that he could not get close to the front row. It was as if they were separated by an endless galaxy. Shuewuya did not seem to hear his call. It seems that the 14 seats in the front row are indeed mysterious. Emperor Chu, Emperor Ling Xiao, Ancestor Giant Spirit, Ancestor Feng Ling, Reverend Withered Rong, Saint Gale, and the other older generation powerhouses' expressions changed. Their eyes were blazing. They instinctively felt the attraction of the front row of praying mat. It was a kind of desire that came from the bottom of their hearts. We must rush over. The group of powerhouses rubbed their fists. It's useless. Don't waste your time. Those 14 seats are not for ordinary people. A faint voice with a sneer sounded. Everyone looked over and realized that the ethereal reverend who had entered first was actually in the second row. Ethereal, why do you say that? A confused voice sounded from the side. It was an old monster with a strong back and an ape's waist. He had a head full of green hair. The aura on his body was extremely dense, and it was filled with an explosive lightning power. He was an expert from the 1 palace, 2 factions, 3 sects, and 4 factions, the Guardian Lightning sect. There was a green-haired old monster, a red-haired old monster, and a yellow-haired old monster. The Guardian Lightning sect's martial soul had always been famous for its lightning attribute. Their cultivation technique, Destructive Thunder Force, was even more famous for its attack power. The 14 seats in the front row are obviously not ordinary. Strength isn't the most important thing. From my observation, I'm afraid it's fate. The ethereal reverend shook his head. There's actually such a strange rule. At the side, a purple-clothed middle-aged man in a dragon python robe frowned secretly. He was an unparalleled expert from the Yen family, the fiery lord, Yen Bulei. The group of people looked helpless. They looked at the 2 people in the front row, and they had other thoughts. The Ocean Emperor was one thing. Her cultivation was extremely high and her strength was terrifying. She was far from an ordinary old monster. However, how could Shuewuya, a mere heaven-grade expert, be able to sit in the front row? The group of old monsters looked unwilling. However, they didn't dare to be presumptuous in the innate Tai Chu Palace. They could only look for their fated seats and sit in them. At this moment, an extremely high temperature appeared in the innate Tai Chu Palace. The group of old monsters' expressions changed. They saw a beautiful figure in a day's squeeze through the front row and sit in the 3rd seat of the 14 seats in the first row. It was a futon formed by the power of the sun's star. It's her. Damn it, the star ancestor is unfair. Many old monsters looked at the beautiful figure with a ferocious expression. They gritted their teeth but didn't dare to say anything. It was because the beautiful figure had a powerful backing. No one dared to think too much. Old monster Feng Ling, your Feng family is really lucky. An old monster looked at old ancestor Feng Ling in the crowd with jealousy. Old ancestor Feng Ling glanced at the old monster and looked at the figure in the 3rd seat with a bitter smile. This woman was none other than Feng Yi. At this moment, Feng Yi was dumbfounded. She obviously didn't know why she suddenly sat in the 3rd seat of the first row. However, everyone in the hall knew that the closer the seat was to the front row, the greater the benefits. Chapter 1266. However, everyone was only envious and jealous of Feng Yi. No one dared to have any ideas about her. Everyone knew that the connate astral ancestor was from the Myriad Stars sect and had a close relationship with the current sect master. Little did they know that Wang Xian was also confused by all this. Only after using the power of the sovereign space to calculate did Wang Xian understand a bit of the heavenly secret. Then, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Feng Yi might have had some luck, but her final fate was to die. Wang Xian's own fate was also death, to die at the hands of the real Wang Xian, who had been stolen by the black-hearted elder. that Wang Xian was one of the true children of fortune in this great calamity. But as Wang Xian changed his fate and became a connate astral god, all of this changed. Although the general situation remained the same, the minor ones changed. As Wang Xian became a connate astral god, Feng Yi, who was his mother in name, had a trace of fate with the astral mother. Mother of myriad stars, mother of all under heaven. Naturally, she received the favor of the connate solar star god. Simply put, all of these changes originated from Wang Xian, the connate astral ancestor. But it's also a result of fate. After some thought, Wang Xian smiled. He was happy to see Feng Yi become the connate solar star mother. But to become the mother of myriad stars, perhaps Wang Xian's eyes flashed with a smile. Xiao Qin looked around and saw that everyone had found their corresponding stars. A clear sound of a bell rang out. Everyone in the hall quieted down. On the high platform, a silver-white figure with a magnificent figure descended. It was soundless and there were no signs at all. At this moment, the hearts of many old monsters in the hall trembled. No one had noticed the connate astral ancestor's appearance. The connate astral ancestor sat on the high platform, his silver-white eyes looking down at the countless constellations below. There weren't many experts who had entered the connate origin palace this time, only about 300. Not even a tenth of the 3,000 constellations. But Wang Xian didn't mind. First, most of the continent's experts had arrived. They represented the majority of the astral river continent's fortune and destiny. If he gathered their fortune, he could still become the world's #1 heavenly Tao saint after this Tao lecture. Secondly, the innate constellations were fixed, and if he wanted to become the star ancestor, it was impossible for him to do it all at once. After taking a glance, his eyes were calm as he spoke. From today onwards, the seats will be like this and cannot be changed. This lecture will last for 3 years. The Shi look up to the stars in the sky and use them to calculate the number of human lives. They do not celebrate festivals according to the 5 stars, they only look at the time of year, month, and day. First settle down and settle down. The heavenly palace of the Ziwei heavenly palace is spread across the stars. The space calamity of death causes the heavenly chief battle axe. The heavenly horse heavenly Lu brings the fiend god. Qian Yang Ho Tua combined the 4 transformations. Hong Luan Tian delighted in the fire bell punishment. 2 masters great limit and small limit. Fleeting years later and Do Jun. The 12 palaces are divided into the 4 transformations. The 4 transformations of Lu, Quan, Ku, and Ji Xing are the most detestable. If there are 2 limits, big and small, if there is a taboo, it is inevitable that there will be a calamity. Kuming Kujia Kueyu, Wenchang Wenchu Zhu Gong Ming. The purple mansion, the sun, the moon, and the stars gather, riches and honor are born from the heavens. The Yang Tua fire bell is the 4 evils, it is not glorious to break through one's limits. The star of fear is mysterious and subtle, and the reason is difficult to understand. Although it is set in the various chapters, there are still words left unsaid. Like the stars, each has its own place, the depth of misfortune and fortune, the length of life, virtuousness and righteousness, each has its own point and cannot be discussed. The stars are distributed in the 12 walls, and the number is fixed at 36. Entering the temple is a wonder, and losing the degree is a necessity. Life is the foundation of good fortune, and the origin is the foundation of exhaustion. The stars have the same number, and the number is fixed. The importance of birth and death must be understood, and the difference between the walls and the degrees must be understood. Looking at the purple star Buddha, the image of a heavenly instrument, leading the constellations to form the walls. Saturn resides in the walls, and if it can move, Venus specializes in wealth, and is most afraid of being empty. When the Emperor star moves, the constellations move quickly, and the greed of guarding the skies leads to a lack of wealth. Everyone has their own duties, and there can be no difference. If one doesn't notice the mechanism and forget the changes, one's fortune will be far from enough. At this moment, Wang Xian was also a peerless almighty who ruled the world. As an innate star god, and with the master god's space as his backing, he dabbled in the path of immortality, path of demons, path of sorcery, path of martial arts, path of worship, path of the netherworld. His research on the number of stars in the heavens was not something that some of the future star gods present could match. When such an existence preached, it was truly mysterious to the extreme, with a myriad of phenomena. Billions of galaxies, stars in the heavens, and the power of the stars opened up as if they were excited, celebrating the prosperity and vastness of the path of the stars in the heavens. Endless starlight illuminated the entire Taichu training ground, turning into silver-white lotuses that fell down for the cultivators to absorb. Streaks of starlight were like raging waves, turning into countless rare and strange beasts. Along with the voice of the preaching, the zither and zither played in harmony. There were cranes walking, phoenixes spreading their wings, cheilants strolling. All kinds of strange phenomena, flowers raining down, and endless multicolored light. The old monsters in the training ground couldn't help but scratch their ears and cheeks when they heard the beauty of it. They were extremely happy. This time, Wang Xian didn't immediately start talking about the great path of the star gods. Instead, he started from the foundation, reshaping the origin of this world's cultivation. Then, level by level, he reached the peak of the monarch level. Wang Xian intended to become the star ancestor of this world, opening the origin of the great path of the stars and strengthening this world. Therefore, he wasn't limited to the path of cultivation. The path of alchemy, the path of formations, the path of inscriptions, and the path of weapon refinement were all taught together. Wang Xian traveled through many foreign continents. His knowledge was so vast that even if he casually left out a little bit, it was enough to intoxicate many old monsters. However, Wang Xian didn't force these people to listen to all the principles. He only planted some seeds in their hearts, hoping that they would take root and sprout in the future. Even so, many people had benefited greatly. In 3 years, many people's cultivation had broken through from the heaven level to the monarch level. The monarch-level experts took the opportunity to cultivate, straightening their foundations and opening up the path to the star god level in the future. Many people, such as the ethereal Honored One, the Chun clan's grand ancestor, old monster Ku Rong, Saint Jiuyao, and other peerless experts, had touched the threshold of the star god level. The ones who benefited the most were the Ocean Emperor Shui Wuya and Feng Yi. The Ocean Emperor himself was a pseudo-god level expert. After straightening out his foundation, it would only take a few months for him to become the second innate star god in this world. Shui Wuya and Feng Yi were heaven-grade latecomers, but 3 years ago, it was as if they were on a rocket. Their cultivation realms rose rapidly. Both of them had entered the monarch level, and their foundations were stable. The others had also improved by leaps and bounds. Silently, 3 years passed by like flowing water. Wang Xian stopped speaking at the right time. When the group of people heard the wonderful part, the mysterious Tao voice suddenly stopped. It was as if it was at the climax, but it suddenly ended. Their faces were filled with unspeakable discomfort. They instinctively woke up, and some of them even wanted to curse out loud. However, after realizing that this was the innate Tai Chu palace, they restrained their expressions and waited quietly for the astral ancestor's words. They only hoped that the astral ancestor could speak for another 8 to 10 years. The first lecture ends here. The next lecture will be 10 years later. All of you go back. After glancing at the crowd, the innate astral ancestor disappeared from the high platform. Thank you, astral ancestor. Thank you for your mercy. Although the crowd felt a little regretful, their respect came from the bottom of their hearts. No matter how arrogant or dangerous they would remember the favor of the astral ancestor's teachings. The group quietly left the innate Tai Chu palace one by one. From today onwards, with the departure of these people, the title of the astral ancestor would truly spread. Chapter 1267. The Ancestor of All Stars. Halfway there, the Sea Emperor's figure paused slightly, and he seemed to have understood something. Many oceanic race experts looked at the Sea Emperor in front of them in surprise. "Your Majesty, what's wrong? Did you learn something from the astral ancestor's sermon?" At the side, a Sea King looked at the Sea Emperor inquisitively with a hint of hope in his eyes. The Sea Emperor shook his head slightly, but he was silent in his heart. As the Emperor of the Sea, he knew more about the ancient providence than the average powerhouse. Karmic luck was one's fate, the fate in the legends. Everyone had their own fate from the moment they were born. When one's karmic luck ran out, their fate would also come to an end. On the other hand, if one's karmic luck was abundant, they would be able to turn misfortunes into blessings. The higher one's karmic luck, the greater one's karmic luck. When one's karmic luck was shallow, one could even choke on cold water. It wasn't just individuals. Everything in the world had karmic luck, including some factions, sects, and countries. They all had karmic luck and karmic luck. For example, the top experts who listened to the sermon were all people with great karmic luck. The astral ancestor's sermon was very likely to gather everyone's karmic luck. If they called the astral ancestor the astral ancestor, that astral ancestor would be able to obtain their karmic luck and worship. With this thought in mind, the Sea Emperor's heart suddenly became vigilant. The astral ancestor probably wasn't doing this purely to pass on his sermon. He probably wasn't a good person either. But in just a moment, the Sea Emperor felt powerless. The Sea Emperor was powerless to stop it. After this sermon, many experts' cultivation improved greatly, and they saw the benefit. There would only be more people going to the innate origin palace next time. She could restrict the oceanic race and forbid their experts from going to listen to the sermon. However, this would offend the astral ancestor. Secondly, it would sow the seeds of hatred and discord among the oceanic race experts. Thirdly, and most importantly, if more experts went to the innate origin palace to listen to the sermon, the human race's strength would definitely grow rapidly. It wouldn't be long before one or more god-level experts were born. At that time, the oceanic race that had sealed themselves off from the world would even attract a calamity. This was an open and above-board scheme. He had no choice but to obey the overwhelming power of the situation. Right now, the only thing I can do is to trust him and go back. I need to break through to the deity level as soon as possible. Once I reach the deity level as well, I'll have the capital to talk to that star god. I might be able to join forces with the Sea Tribe to break his plan. As the Sea Emperor thought to himself, the group of Sea Tribe experts returned to the boundless sea. On the Star River continent, the return of many experts who had listened to the Tao for 3 years had caused a huge uproar. In particular, the changes in the cultivation of these experts had caused a huge reaction among the major forces on the Star River continent. Many experts who had missed the opportunity were filled with regret. At this moment, the news of the Star Ancestor's second lecture also spread, causing even more experts to jump for joy and roll up their sleeve. Even more experts returned to their sects and immediately went into seclusion. As for the attacks of the Oceanic Tribe, many experts no longer paid any attention to them. Compared to a deity, what was a momentary lapse in strength? It could be imagined that in the next 10 years there would be a lot of 4 or 5 of them. Boundless Divine Nation, Innate Tai Chu Palace. Wang Xian stood on a high platform, countless divine lights flickering in his eyes. Just as the Sea Emperor had guessed, he, Wang Xian, was not a charity. He would not preach the Tao for no reason and publicize the secrets of the deity level. The more deity-level experts that appeared, the more disadvantageous it would be for the Sea Tribe. However, the one who was affected the most was still Wang Xian, the first azure dragon star god, the innate star ancestor. However, Wang Xian did not care. At this moment, a huge and sacred altar appeared in front of him. The invisible and mysterious altar continuously absorbed the rich fortune. After being refined by the fortune, the altar gradually turned into a snow-white jade butterfly. This was the heavenly Tao divine jade butterfly refined by the sacred altar, also known as the creation jade butterfly. It represented the identity of the first heavenly Tao divine sovereign. Looking at the snow-white creation jade butterfly that was gradually suffused with a hint of purple, Wang Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. He had succeeded. As long as he refined this jade butterfly, the heavenly Tao divine sovereign's position in the Star River continent would be his. At that time, even if a few more innate star gods appeared in the Star River continent, they would not be able to overturn his palm. Just as the clone in the Star River continent was fusing with the Star River Divine Sovereign, in the Spirit Ocean continent, Qin Feng's main body returned from the primordial land. In the depths of the 9 huge galaxies, on the origin star, the huge stars had turned into a boundless star divine kingdom. It swallowed and spat out the star Yuan Qi in the billions of galaxies. With a flash of starlight, Qin Feng's figure appeared in the Star Divine Kingdom. The Chaos Divine Power transformed his body into the body of an innate star god. Endless starlight surrounded him, turning into extremely rich star divine runes and fusing into Qin Feng's body. Qin Feng was surprised to find that a part of the star law's mysteries in his body was rapidly forming, and a moment later, it entered the 15th level. He turned into the star divinity sun state. However, it did not end there. Instead, it continued to evolve, and layers of star profound were naturally grasped by him. Step by step, it was perfected, and even a trace of the star law was born. In just an instant, Qin Feng's understanding of the star law had surpassed other laws, reaching a level that was on par with the space law. In a way, he could be considered a true god of both space and star. However, it was not the divine throne in the Spirit Ocean continent. The strongest was undoubtedly the water law, the boundary emperor realm. After slightly comprehending the power of the star law, Qin Feng's expression changed. He turned into a stream of light and flew down, locking on to Xingqian School. In the depths of Xingqian School, white clouds rolled, and thousands of stars shone above his head. On a divine peak, an ordinary-looking young man instantly raised his head and looked at the star river above his head. A trace of surprise flashed quickly. Half a year had passed, and many experts who entered the Eastern Wilderness Divine Treasure had returned one after another. Some of them had given up on exploring the Eastern Wilderness Divine Treasure, but chose to return after completing a certain task. However, there were also people like Qin Feng, who chose to return after unifying the continent and taking it all. Wang Daoi was one of them. He entered the earthly rock continent, one of the 6 continents of the ancient lands. He did not open up the underworld like Qin Feng, but he coincidentally comprehended the mysteries of the Earth's yin-yang reincarnation and defeated the earthly rock guardian true god, thus unifying the earthly rock continent. He also gained a lot from this trip. His understanding of the reincarnation law had reached the peak, and his 10 lifetimes of cultivation had faintly integrated into a comprehensive study, forming a phenomenon of his own. At this moment, his aura was like a god and a demon, like a dark and deep abyss. Chapter 1268. Above the endless Milky Way, a meteor streaked across the sky and soon arrived 1,000,000 miles away from Xingqian School. Below him were the countless stellar peaks of Xingqian School. They were majestic and majestic, like countless islands in the sea of clouds. The peaks were hidden in the clouds, and there was no end in sight. Using his divine will, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. A familiar aura appeared among the peaks. Wang Daoi? Didn't he enter the eastern wilderness divine treasure? Did he come out? I wonder if Gong Ao came out? Qin Feng saw a young man with a face like the wind and the moon on one of the peaks. That young man was just like an ordinary person who was slightly more handsome. There was no aura at all. He seemed to have seen Qin Feng and nodded slightly at Qin Feng. He shouldn't be back yet. Qin Feng shook his head in an instant. Gong Ao's aura was not in the depths of Xingqian school. Gong Ao was extremely domineering. He had long regarded the position of Xingqian school as his exclusive property. If he returned to the sect, he would definitely not allow Crepe Myrtle Star to take the position. Qin Feng did not hide his aura. That huge aura seemed to be able to freeze time and space. It pressed down on the entire mountain gate of Xingqian school like an avalanche. Countless experts were alarmed. They were all shocked. It's him. In the depths of Xingqian school, in the Lingshao Hall, Crepe Myrtle Star looked up. A trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. He was no stranger to the aura that flashed and disappeared half a year ago. Whoosh whoosh. Beams of starlight flew out from the depths of the mountain gate. Each of them had an extremely domineering aura. Many of them had an ancient aura. Where did this brat come from? How dare he provoke Xingqian school? How dare he? A group of people with extremely domineering auras were furious. Their faces were cold. Most of these experts were the old antiques of Xingqian school who were in seclusion all year round. Some of them were the old elders of Xingqian school who had sealed themselves and were nearing the end of their lives. He didn't know Qin Feng. Grandmasters, please don't do anything. This is the third true disciple of the sect, Primeval King Qin Feng. At this moment, a voice sounded. 5 colored lights swirled, and 5 streams of light flew over. The 5 emperors of Xingqian school. Many of the Xingqian school elders stopped what they were doing and looked at the figures in the 5 streams of light in confusion. His gaze landed on the elder of the Azure Arch, Yang Qingsong, who had spoken earlier. Martial nephew Qingsong, is this young man the third true disciple of the primordial true King Qin Feng who contributed the altar secret method to the sect? The one who spoke was an elder who had been in seclusion for hundreds of years. The aura around his body was terrifying. It turned out to be a 14th rank ancient Star Lord. The elders found it hard to believe. The aura of this black-clothed young man was unfathomable. It could be said that he was terrifyingly tyrannical. He was definitely not of the 14th order. He was most likely a peerless existence above the 15th order. When had there ever been such a terrifying true disciple in Xingqian school? Martial nephew Qingsong, are you sure you're not mistaken? It was an old man with a simple face. He was also a peerless expert who had been in seclusion for a long time and had only come out recently. The elder of the Azure Arch shook his head. There's no mistake. He's the third true disciple of the sect, the primordial true King Qin Feng. I believe many of my junior brothers and martial nephews can recognize him. Experts flew out from the sect one after another. Many people recognized Qin Feng. Among them were a group of young disciples from All Stars College a few years ago. Among the acquaintances, Qin Feng saw the 9 Dragons' Holy King, True Lord Fufeng, the Psychic Patriarch, the Light Master Holy King, and the Golden Spirit Patriarch who had made a bet with him on running naked in the savage battlefield. True Lord Hongluan also appeared. However, her aura was abnormally powerful. She was originally only at the 8th order of the Sage Realm, but she had already reached the 14th order. In just a few years, she had advanced so much. It was terrifying. However, in the current era where the monster tiers were not poor, and in such a great era, it was not considered outstanding. Everyone, long time no see. How have you been? Qin Feng smiled and nodded at everyone. Seeing this, the suspicions of the Xingqian school's elders were finally extinguished. This kid has become so powerful. Among the many disciples, a soft whisper could be heard. Qin Feng turned his gaze over as a smile appeared on his face. Among the crowd, he could see several students from the Constellation Academy. Tan Mingfeng, Lu Chunyang, Tuoba Yi, Senior Sister Bai Yun, Yun Mo, Shangguan Yun, Fu Yifei, Li Qiubai, and the first seat of the White Tiger and Black Tortoise Academies, Lu Qingxue and Lu Tianjun. Lu Qingxue and Lu Tianjun were siblings. Qin Feng only knew about this after a long time. The two of them were born in an ancient reclusive family, the Lu family. The Lu family was quite powerful in Xingqian school. Beside the two of them were a group of elders and disciples. For example, Qi Ling. Qin Feng had once instigated her to kill an extremely powerful elder with the surname Wu from the martial god empire. 4 years had passed. Most of these people had already distinguished themselves from All Stars College and became outer and inner disciples of Xingqian school. Among them, the more outstanding ones were Lu Tianjun and Lu Qingxue. They were not far from becoming true disciples. Beside them were Zhou Yuxian, Qin Tianjiao, Xue Fei, and other geniuses who came from the mountain river city of the Yan nation. Qin Tianjiao and Xue Fei had been defeated by Qin Feng many times and were disheartened. Zhou Yuxian also had some misunderstandings with Qin Feng because of the prince of the Long family. When they saw Qin Feng, they could not help but have complicated expressions. Although the three of them had successfully entered Xingqian school from All Stars College, they were still struggling in the outer sect after being unconscious for 3 years. How could they be compared to a true disciple like Qin Feng? Needless to say, Qin Feng, a true disciple, was not simple. Looking at the cautious, shocked, and even fearful expressions of the few martial granduncles and great-great-martial granduncles, it was clear how special Qin Feng was in their eyes. Qin Feng only glanced at these people. However, among them, Qin Feng did not see the most outstanding group of supreme geniuses who were on the same level as him. Qian Kai, Ji Huang'er, Xiao Yuchan, Yuan Daozhen, Zhang Xian, and the others. Qian Kai was needless to say. This person had always been at odds with Qin Feng, but he had always been suppressed by him. However, after obtaining some mysterious inheritances, especially after having the old grandpa, Qian Kai was like a hidden dragon soaring into the sky. He was out of control and became extremely difficult to deal with. Ji Huang'er was not simple either. As the only Sun Star Lord of the current generation, she must have great luck. Xiao Yuchan was needless to say. He had obtained the immemorial Sui sovereign's true inheritance, the godly light-slaying art. His strength must be extraordinary. Yuan Daozhen was not simple either. Although his aptitude was different, his will was strong. He sacrificed himself to the sword and cultivated the sacred sword spirit refining art. Qin Feng had seen his luck and knew that he was not simple. Zhang Xian was even more terrifying. He was the founder of the Lifeless Sword sect and one of the demon ancestors. These people did not seem to be in Xingqian school. Qin Feng felt that the atmosphere in Xingqian school was a little strange. Chapter 1269. There were many beautiful girls in the crowd who were looking at the black-clothed youth in front of the mountain gate. In the Spirit Sea continent, appearance was never the most important factor for a man to display his charm. Strength was everything. However, Qin Feng was top-notch in terms of both appearance and strength. For someone of the same age to be able to have such a status and cultivation level before the age of 30, it was obviously rare to find someone like him. Qin Feng's reputation had spread throughout Xingqian school a long time ago. Of course, at that time, many female disciples' impression of this young expert in his prime was only that he was a true disciple. However, he returned today as a true disciple. How could the female disciples not be tempted? The ones who regretted it the most were Bai Yun, Yun Mo, Xuelian, Yi Qinghua, and Jiang Binger. Bai Yun and Yun Mo were the first female disciples to come into contact with Qin Feng. At that time, Bai Yun and Yunemo were seniors in All Stars College. When Qin Feng first came to Azure Dragon Institute, they helped Qin Feng a lot. However, if it weren't for some small conflicts, the two girls would have a great chance of becoming Qin Feng's women. Thinking back, the two girls in the crowd looked gloomy. Next were Xuelian, Yi Qinghua, and Jiang Binger. Yi Qinghua and Jiang Binger met at All Stars College's Hidden Dragon Points competition. Qin Feng had saved their lives, so the two girls didn't have any ulterior motives. However, when they saw Qin Feng offend Yi Ding, they distanced themselves from him. Now that they thought back, they regretted it. The one with the most complicated expression was Xuelian. Among the crowd, Xuelian was already a level 8 saint. Her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, and she was even valued by a self-proclaimed elder of the Star Sect. He chose her as his successor and made an exception to become a true disciple. Xuelian and Qin Feng had an ambiguous relationship, and Qin Feng had seen her naked body several times. Xuelian clenched her teeth. All these years, she had been trying to catch up to that hateful black-clothed youth, but the gap between them seemed to be growing larger and larger. Originally, she thought that she could try to catch up to that young expert by becoming the disciple of that elder. Now, she felt an indescribable sense of discouragement and despair. The difference was too great. It was so big that it made people feel hopeless. However, at this point, while her heart was filled with complicated emotions, she did not feel any regret, nor did she feel a trace of relief. Qin Feng also saw a few familiar women in the crowd, but he only glanced at them and did not look again. Although he had interacted with these women before, their relationship wasn't that good, so he didn't have any other thoughts. Just like that hurried time, if you missed it, you missed it. In the past, they didn't have much interaction with each other. Now that the gap between them had widened, they didn't think much of it. Suddenly, his expression changed. He stared into the depths of the mountain, and a cold smile appeared in his eyes. The main character is late. The purple light was vast and mighty, and a monstrous pressure came from the depths of Xingqian School. It contained a primitive and extremely noble essence. The purple light flew and appeared in front of the crowd in an instant. He was wearing a purple and gold imperial robe and a flat imperial crown. The majestic pressure emitted from his body seemed to transcend time and space and freeze all the worlds in the universe. Greetings, sect leader. Around him, regardless of whether they were the outer disciples, inner disciples, or elders of Xingqian School, they all bowed down to pay their respects. Ziwei Star Sovereign. Qin Feng looked at this young Supreme Master. He sensed the strange and contradictory connection between fellow Star Lords. Ziwei Star Sovereign? Yuanshi Star Sovereign? The two of them had different expressions and strange expressions. Yuanshi True King, don't be rude. This is the Crown Prince of the first founder of Xingqian School, Ziwei Tianzi. He is also the sect leader revered by the current Xingqian School. An old man with a simple face and a cold expression walked out. He looked straight at Qin Feng and scolded him sternly. As a true disciple of Xingqian School, how can you not know your place when you see the sect leader and Star Venerable? Why don't you kneel down and kowtow to the sect leader? Qin Feng turned around and looked at the powerhouse of Xingqian School, who jumped out. Du Pingxing, the Hall Master of the Medicine King Hall. Qin Feng recognized this person. The Medicine King Hall was a subordinate temple of the Alchemy Temple, one of the 4 great temples of Xingqian School. Qin Feng was no stranger to the Hall Master of the Medicine King Hall. This person had always regarded him as a thorn in his side. In the past, when he participated in the successor ceremony, this person and the elder of the Medicine King Hall, Yanli Jiangwei, and Hua Jiqing wholeheartedly wanted to promote the inner disciple, Ling Yangwei, to the position of a true disciple. It could be said that he looked down on Qin Feng in every way possible. Even if he became a true disciple of Xingqian School, he was unwilling to hand over the Medicine King Hall to him. He wholeheartedly wanted to pave the way for Ling Yangwei to build the bridge. Qin Feng had been running around all these years and had forgotten these grudges. Now that he saw Du Pingxing, he sneered in his heart. This hall master of the Medicine King Hall was really laughable. Did he think that he could come out and suppress Qin Feng just because he joined Crepe Myrtle Star and became a lackey? Crepe Myrtle Star's expression was indifferent, as if he didn't see Du Pingxing's scolding. His gaze fell on Qin Feng. This primeval Star Lord had to be intimidated. He had to obtain the power of the 36 main stars. It was necessary to give this primeval Star Lord a show of strength. Many Xingqian school experts looked at the cold-faced Crepe Myrtle Star and primeval true King Qin Feng with subtle expressions. They could clearly feel the strangeness in the atmosphere between the two young experts. This trick again. Qin Feng's eyes were slightly disdainful. He looked down at the hall master of the Medicine King Hall, whom he used to look up to. Ant-like thing. His gaze turned, and an invisible force pressed down on him. Du Pingxing's expression was extremely fearful. He felt as if he was being stared at by a terrifying beast from ancient times, and a feeling of death appeared in his heart. His whole body trembled, and almost subconsciously, he lost his composure and roared. "What do you want?" Qin Feng glanced at the terrified Du Pingxing and shook his head slightly. How disappointing! The hall master of the Medicine King Hall is actually a coward who dares to jump out and find trouble with me, but he screams like a woman. Du Pingxing instantly reacted. His face was red and he pointed at Qin Feng. His eyes were filled with fear and anger. He instinctively wanted to scold him, but he did not dare to say any words. His opponent's strength was too terrifying. Just a glance made him feel like an extremely small ant that could be trampled to death at any time. Don't be so afraid. Although you look down on me in every way possible, I have no intention of killing you. Qin Feng's expression was calm. Although, to kill an ant like you, I only need a glance. His faint words were like a gust of cold wind. Many experts felt a chill in their hearts. Some elders wanted to scold him, but it was as if their words were stuck in their throats, and they could not say a word. Their leader, Crepe Myrtle Star, was expressionless and did not say anything. However, his gaze on Qin Feng became sharper and sharper, and gradually revealed a trace of coldness. This primeval Star Lord dared to slap the hall master of the Medicine King Hall in the face in front of so many people. He did not take him seriously at all. Today, not only did he want to plunder this person's star source, but he also wanted to teach this yellow-haired brat a good lesson. Chapter 1270. Yuanshi True King, aren't you being a little too presumptuous? A faint voice sounded. It was a slight reprimand. Crepe Myrtle Star. Qin Feng turned around. This person could not stand it anymore. Presumptuous. Qin Feng stared at Crepe Myrtle Star. A mere 9th-level holy king wants a 5th-level king to kneel. Isn't that presumptuous? A 5th-level king? As soon as he said that, many of the elders and experts of Xingqian school exclaimed in a low voice. The black-clothed young man in front of them was actually a king? Many elders were so shocked that they did not even realize that their beards had been pulled out. A king who was not even 30 years old. The disciples of All Stars College looked at the black-clothed young man in a daze. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The king realm. The souls of the disciples of All Stars College were trembling. Even in the current era where many ancient and Archean experts were emerging endlessly, they were still existences standing at the peak of the pyramid. Such existences were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. There were more than millions of cultivators in the world. There were only a few who had cultivated to 5th-level Empyrean realm. And those who could become kings were the peerless overlords of the era. Those who could be born in each era could be counted on one hand. Du Pingxing's legs were a little weak. That hateful black-clothed young man was actually a king? Du Pingxing was terrified when he thought that he had offended a king just now. He was even more in disbelief. A few years ago, Qin Feng was just an inner disciple of Xingqian school who had just been promoted. How could he become a king who was above all others in just a few years? A strong sense of jealousy, unwillingness, and anger burned fiercely. Crepe Myrtle Star's expression did not change. He had already guessed Qin Feng's strength. Moreover, kings were high and mighty in the eyes of ordinary people, but in his eyes they were not that brilliant. As the first-generation grandmaster of Xingqian school, the crown prince of Crepe Myrtle, the Crepe Myrtle divine dynasty was visited by millions of star gods. He had seen too many experts. Kings were amazing, but they were not absolutely invincible. Moreover, he himself was an invincible king-level cultivator. Dealing with an ordinary king-level cultivator was a piece of cake for him. "You aren't your real king, you're wrong. Elder Du is a member of our faction, and he represents the rules of our Xingqian school. You aren't your real king. Do you think that you can be unscrupulous and disregard the rules of our faction just because you've reached the king realm?" Crepe Myrtle Star was not a kind person either. As soon as he opened his mouth, he put Qin Feng in a bad light, firmly standing on the highest point of the sect's rules. He pushed Qin Feng to the opposite side of the sect. It could be seen that the expressions of many experts from the various sects changed abruptly. They looked at Qin Feng with subtle expressions. "First, you're going to accuse me, then arrest me and deprive me of my star fate, right?" Qin Feng sneered inwardly. He could tell that this Crepe Myrtle Star sovereign was extremely ambitious, and the star source in his body was far more powerful than an ordinary star source. It was likely that he had devoured many powerful star sources to have such a powerful and unbelievable ability. He had seen many geniuses who were reincarnated from constellations in the sect. He was afraid that they had either been killed or left Xingqian school to take refuge. "That's enough, Crepe Myrtle Star. Don't put on airs as the so-called headmaster. Many elders in the entire sect are under your abuse and recognize you as the headmaster of Xingqian school, but I, Qin Feng, don't recognize you." Qin Feng looked indifferent. Crepe Myrtle Star, as the saying goes, if the name is not right, the words are not right. You forced the Star Venerable to abdicate, which is usurping the divine weapon of the sect. As the inherited disciple of Xingqian school, I have to set things right. Today, if you give up the position of the headmaster of Xingqian school, confess your crimes, and accept the punishment of the sect, I will let it go. If you say no, the Xingqian school will be your burial place. As soon as he said that, many elders and disciples changed their expressions. He was openly trying to compete for the position of the headmaster of Xingqian school. Many elders looked gloomy. They wanted to say something, but in front of the two kings they did not dare to speak. "True King Yuanshi, it seems that you are really blinded by greed today. You think that you can be unscrupulous and disregard the sect because you are in the king realm." Crepe Myrtle Star looked at Qin Feng with pity, but a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. "Well, I have to capture you today and teach you a good lesson. I hope you can correct your mistakes." Qin Feng shook his head. "Crepe Myrtle Star, you don't have to show off your hypocritical face here. You have so much source energy of Xingqian school. I think many of the reincarnated celestial lords of Xingqian school have fallen into your hands and been sucked dry by you. I am the living body of primeval celestial lord. I am afraid you have been drooling for a long time. Capture? You probably want to suck my source energy of stars. But to be honest, I also want the source energy of Crepe Myrtle Star in you. You can't run away today. You are too arrogant." Crepe Myrtle Star's expression was extremely gloomy. In an instant, a purple light appeared in his hand and slashed toward Qin Feng. Crepe Myrtle Divine Sword. It was the sword of the ancient Emperor of Crepe Myrtle. It contained the power of the ancient Emperor of Crepe Myrtle. It contained a strange power. Ordinary existences below the king realm would not be able to resist this sword at all. They would be split into two and killed directly. This kind of power is useless to me. Qin Feng smiled coldly and pointed his finger. It was the quasi-emperor law, water curtain lotus. Lotus flowers floated out of the void and filled the void for hundreds of feet. Countless experts saw countless icy blue lotus flowers appear around them. Each flower was beautiful and holy. The unparalleled purple sword light slashed at the water lotus. It seemed to be absorbed by the water light and solidified, unable to move. Crepe Myrtle Star's face darkened slightly when he felt the terrifying suction force on the long sword. It should be known that his sword contained a part of the supreme mysteries of the laws of the stars. Even an ordinary heaven and earth would be split by this sword. But now it was being absorbed and unable to move. His expression did not change. This was just the beginning. Crepe Myrtle Star Calamity. On the Crepe Myrtle Divine Sword, an incomparably sharp cold light instantly tore through the water lotus. As the sword slashed, it seemed as if millions of stars had appeared. It seemed as if time and space had been torn apart. It broke through the void and slashed toward Qin Feng. The Crepe Myrtle Star Calamity was a mythical supreme technique created by the Emperor of Crepe Myrtle. It was a secret technique that used the Crepe Myrtle Star Calamity to support the calculation of the stars in the sky. It was an extremely complicated technique that contained the power of the stars of the universe. No matter how powerful a martial art was, its weakness would be calculated and then destroyed in a single blow. As the sword flew out, many of the Xingqian school's elders and disciples within thousands of feet felt a chill in their hearts. They felt as if they were being blasted into thousands of pieces by the endless purple starry sword light. Not a single piece was left. Countless icy blue water lotuses turned into fragments in the sword light. The sword light covered the sky and in the next moment, it descended on Qin Feng's head. It was as if it had completely wiped out Qin Feng's figure with one blow. Chapter 1271. Child's Play. Qin Feng sneered and raised his head. Suddenly, a cold light burst out from between his fingers. Quasi-Emperor Law, 30,000 miles of ice. An icy chill shrouded the entire Xingqian school. Many experts of Xingqian school could not help but raise their heads. Snow fell from the sky and covered thousands of mountains and rivers in the blink of an eye. When they came back to their senses, they saw a figure frozen like an ice sculpture on the mountain path of the school. He has completely suppressed Crepe Myrtle Star. A 15th-order Empyrean realm elder was shocked to see this scene, and his emotions surged. Many ancient elders looked at the snow in the sky and were suddenly speechless. Freezing 30,000 miles with a single strike, was this the power of an invincible king? Is Crepe Myrtle Star defeated? Someone muttered to himself. An ancient 15th-level expert shook his head. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Crepe Myrtle Star is the crown prince that Emperor Crepe Myrtle is most proud of. He is also the ancient Crepe Myrtle Star. He has dominated Crepe Myrtle Star for tens of thousands of years. If he didn't want to become a star god, he would have transcended with Emperor Crepe Myrtle. His strength is definitely not that simple. I'm afraid Yuanshi True King may not have the last laugh. This ancient 15th-level expert also came from the ancient times. Although he was not in existence of the Crepe Myrtle era, he had seen the remnants of the glory of the Crepe Myrtle divine dynasty and knew how powerful it was. Emperor Crepe Myrtle was not an ordinary ancient emperor. Although he was not as peerless as the 5 wilderness great emperor, he was not inferior by much. Indeed, he won't be defeated so easily. Crepe Myrtle Star is considered one of the best among the kings, but he still has no chance of winning against Yuanshi True King. A faint voice sounded. That old antique was humiliated and was about to fly into a rage. However, when his gaze turned and landed on the figure that had appeared out of nowhere on the snowy ground, the anger on his face turned into fear. Wang Daoyi. Wang Daoyi had appeared. In the face of such a terrifying existence, even Myrtle Star Monarch would avoid him and not dare to find trouble with him. Many old antiques of Xingqian school knew how terrifying this person was. 10 lifetimes of dominance, 10 lifetimes of kingship. This was a heaven-defying existence that caused even the heavens and earth to tremble. Why does the holy ancestor have so much confidence in the primordial true king? At this moment, a faint voice sounded. Sacred ancestor, this was related to Wang Dao's other identity before his 10th life. There weren't many people who knew about this identity of his. Wang Daoyi turned around and saw a middle-aged man with a cold expression wearing a sun, moon and stars uniform among the many old antiques of Xingqian school who had just woken up. Patriarch Glacier. Wang Daoyi raised his eyebrows. Patriarch Glacier was a headmaster of a certain era in Xingqian school. He was also the founder of Xingqian school's resurgence. Although Xingqian school was powerful and had a solid foundation, it had also experienced several ups and downs. In one of the epochs, they were suppressed by powerful enemies. When they were at their weakest, they were even weaker than the profound sect of Snow Domain. It was Patriarch Glacier who appeared out of nowhere and turned the tide. He carried the banner of Xingqian school and won successive battles, reviving the declining Xingqian school. That epoch was weak and didn't have enough luck. If it weren't for that, Patriarch Glacier would have already become a god. Even so, Patriarch Glacier was still a half-step king. It wouldn't be long before he reached the king realm. Among the many old antiques of Xingqian school, he was one of the best. Nodding slightly at Patriarch Glacier, Wang Daoyi didn't hide his voice. It's true that Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle has taken away a part of the origin of the reincarnated Star Monarchs over the years. His power in the Star Dao has greatly increased. It can be said that he's almost invincible among kings. However, if you know the primordial true king's background, you'll know how naive you are now. Wang Daoyi's voice was a little hoarse. He looked at Qin Feng. At this moment, Qin Feng was definitely stronger and more terrifying than he had imagined. Boom! In an instant, the huge ice block exploded. Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle's face was cold. A strange starlight flew out from behind him. It was a huge banner. The primitive divine star banner. Qin Feng had once seen a star monarch display the primitive divine star banner. When the banner was unfurled, everything turned into chaos. It was extremely terrifying. However, that primitive divine star banner was far inferior to the one on Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle. When the primitive divine star banner was unfurled, it seemed as if billions of galaxies were swaying. Huge stars condensed into substance appeared one after another. A destructive power burst out from the divine weapon. The void within a radius of 10,000 miles seemed to turn into chaos along with the divine star banner. This primitive divine star banner seems to have absorbed a lot of origin of stars. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so powerful. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes slightly. Primordial True King, today I'll let you see the real power of Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle. Next year, today will be the anniversary of your death. Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle roared angrily. The humiliation of being sealed in ice made him furious like a volcano. A terrifying power that could turn time into chaos locked onto Qin Feng. Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle waved the primitive divine star banner in his hand. Origin Rebirth, Primordial Shatter. A thunderous roar erupted. A terrifying aura burst out from the primitive divine star banner as if it was the source of all destruction. Rumble. Many experts of Xingqian school were shocked. In the sky, the huge stars seemed to be on the verge of falling as the primitive divine star banner waved. Crack! Crack! The divine star banner waved and the void cracked. A destructive torrent that could split heaven and earth swept over. The sky fell and the earth cracked. It's indeed very powerful. What a pity. If your primitive divine star banner could be nourished by the origin of stars and turned into an origin star banner, I'm afraid even a master god would be killed by it. However, this level, too weak. Qin Feng looked indifferent. He stretched out a hand and quasi-emperor power condensed on his finger like a landslide and a tsunami. At the same time, he condensed a part of the power of the Master God space and turned it into a ray of light that locked onto Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle and blasted it out. Wherever the majestic space-time power passed, it seemed to pass through time and space. The ray of light locked onto the country, and the endless torrent of stars that was triggered by the primitive divine star banner froze in an instant. Everyone was shocked and felt as if their thoughts suddenly stopped for a moment. In the next second, the invisible ray of light locked onto the country. Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle's figure suddenly froze in the endless starlight. His eyes were filled with shock, unwillingness, and fear. He raised a hand as if he was trying to wave the primitive divine star banner. An invisible force cut through time and space and suddenly bombarded Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle. Bang! 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 Countless sounds of glass shattering seemed to be heard. Starting from his feet, Star Monarch Crepe Myrtle's body was like broken glass and turned into pieces inch by inch. If I could condense a few more origin stars and turn my natal star into an ancestor star, I might be able to contend with Qin Feng. But now I'm too far away. Wang Daoi shook his head when he saw this scene. Someone just said that he had a lot of book coins and was just waiting for the next chapter. It seems that I really need to explode. But I should at least wait until the seniors finish the college entrance examination. It's summer vacation in July. Chapter 1272. Dead. Many experts from Xingchen School were speechless when they saw this scene. At the same time, a chill rose from the bottom of their hearts. Even a king had died so easily. What kind of great era was this? Was it an opportunity or a calamity to choose to be born in this era? Crack! Crack! Crepe Myrtle Star's body crumbled. The moment his divine body completely disintegrated, the invisible thick purple mist turned into stars and flew out. Star origin? Qin Feng's eyes moved, and a thick wave of star divine power spread out from his body. Rumble! A huge silver-white vortex appeared and instantly swallowed the purple mist stars. An extremely thick and noble purple star origin entered Qin Feng's body. It followed the trajectory of the divine power and entered the depths of his soul, fusing with the natal star imprint. Qin Feng closed his eyes. His divine will followed the natal star imprint and extended into the unknown billions of galaxies. In the depths of the galaxy, a huge star was blooming with extremely bright starlight. It seemed to be the center of this nebula. It was extremely bright and had a noble, ancient, and primeval ancestral power. Thick chaotic energy spread out from the depths of the galaxy and was absorbed by many stars. Although it was also absorbing, it revealed a lethargic aura. This was the primeval star of the 36 main stars. It was once the first star to be born in this star field. However, it had experienced countless ups and downs. It had been at its peak and also suffered heavy losses. Stars were born and destroyed in the billions of galaxies all the time. From an ordinary primeval star, giant star, and main star, as long as it was promoted to a demon god star, these constellations would wither one day. The primeval star was born as a main star. Moreover, it was a first-generation main star. Its star origin was huge. It was also because of this that it had a lifespan that far exceeded that of an ordinary main star. However, it did not transcend. Even if some of its previous hosts successfully became true gods and transcended this world, they still only received a partial extension of their lifespan. It eventually declined until it was about to disintegrate when it met Qin Feng. It received a portion of the main god space's power support and was able to extend the star's lifespan. Even so, they could only struggle at death's door for an era. Although it looked enormous, it was like an overlord in its later years. The aura of life and death was accumulating. The Polaris star sovereign controlled a portion of the Polaris star's origin. As one of the 36 main stars, the Emperor star was different from the origin star, which was in decline. This star often showed its divinity in the world and was known as the symbol of the Emperor. Needless to say, its destiny was very strong. It was like the sun at noon. It was one of the strongest among the 36 main stars. As an ancient celestial lord, the portion of celestial Lord Myrtlestar's origins was extremely vast. In particular, he had plundered the origins of many second-generation and third-generation celestial lord. The star source was extremely rich. After Qin Feng killed celestial Lord Myrtlestar, almost all of the star essence had gone to primeval star. The rolling star essence poured into the lifeless, enormous star core in the deepest part of the primeval star. With the help of the star essence, the primeval star, which was like an arrow at the end of its flight, began to have wisps of vitality. In Qin Feng's opinion, although this world's martial arts had shown its divinity and far surpassed that of the Star River continent, however, its attainments in the laws of stars were far inferior to that of the Star River continent. Although the Xingqian school had opened up the Tao of stars, his Tao of stars was too domineering. Although he could interact with the stars in the 9 huge galaxies in outer space, it was more of a plunder. However, it was more of a form of plundering the source of those stars. As a result, those stars with great potential and spirituality had no choice but to send down their lives in this way to replenish a part of their essence that had been plundered. In contrast, the cultivation method of the Star River continent was gentler. Humans and stars cultivated together and shared the great Tao. In Qin Feng's opinion, that was the true Tao of stars. Therefore, when the wisps of star source poured into the primeval star, he used the secret method of the myriad star sect on the Star River continent. With his peerless divine power, the wisps of star source poured into the primeval star along with the origin, refining the deathly stillness and the aura of death in the depths of the primeval star inch by inch. In the center of the star core, there was a new heavenly abode surrounded by the aura of death. It was a heavenly abode created after Qin Feng poured the God King space into the primeval star. The small heavenly abode was barren, filled with a grayish-black aura of death and the aura of death. It was dusk. As the origin poured in, the divine power transformed. The gray star core slowly grew vitality, and the aura of death in the new heavenly abode dissipated. The heavenly abode began to expand, gradually filling the entire star. Silver light flowed and the starlight surged. As a result, even more primal chaos yuan qi poured into the star from the billions of galaxies. Under the guidance of the divine power, the remaining spirituality of the primeval star began to merge into the depths of the star core. The star core began to change, transforming into an innate star divine embryo. It's done. The innate star divine embryo has been formed. It just needs to absorb the chaotic energy and slowly nurture it. Eventually, it will be born. Perhaps I will have the chance to become the star ancestor in this galaxy. In front of the mountain gate, Qin Feng opened his eyes. His gaze fell on the 2 objects left in the air: the crepe myrtle divine sword and the primitive divine star flag. The crepe myrtle divine sword contained a trace of the ancient Emperor crepe myrtle's origin energy. After refining it, it could increase the divine power. After the primitive divine star flag was erased, it could be used as the origin spirit treasure of the divine embryo in the depths of the primeval star. It could be refined day and night by the innate star divine embryo and nurtured by billions of galaxies. The primitive divine star flag might be able to upgrade and become a peerless divine weapon that could threaten the Master God. With a wave of his sleeve, the two treasures disappeared into Qin Feng's sleeves. Qin Feng looked outside the mountain gate at the many elders of Xingchen School with complicated expressions. For a moment, the atmosphere outside the mountain gate was a little cold. Qin Feng's expression was cold. No matter what, he was determined to become the headmaster of Xingchen School, whether it was for the luck of Xingchen School or for the idea of becoming the star ancestor of this world. If anyone dared to stop him from becoming the star ancestor, he would not be merciful. If these people did not know what was good for them, he did not mind killing them. He would eliminate a group of rebels. What are you waiting for? Since the primeval true king has eliminated the rebels, he should be the next headmaster of Xingchen School. Hurry up and greet the primeval true king. A powerful cultivator of Xingchen School stood out. This was an old man in a green robe. He was the master of the current elder Qing Di, the guardian of the Star Tomb, and the guardian of Xingchen School. He was very strong and was not inferior to Patriarch Glacier. Whether it was status or strength, he was one of the best among the many elders of Xingchen School. This Dao protector had a rather deep impression of Qin Feng. Whether it was the 7th grade array grandmaster that Qin Feng exposed or the secret technique that he presented to the primeval true king, they all passed through this guardian's hands. If it were not for that secret technique, Xingchen School might not have been able to survive the catastrophe 2 years ago. Naturally, this guardian's impression of Qin Feng was much deeper than that of the other powerful cultivators of Xingchen School. However, many powerful cultivators of Xingchen School outside the mountain gate looked hesitant. They were obviously unwilling. Chapter 1273. Seeing that the experts of Xingchen School were still hesitating, the Taoist protector's face darkened. The Taoist protector's expression changed when he saw the cold glint in the eyes of the young primeval true king. He knew very well that Qin Feng's patience was about to reach its limit. If they disrespected this person, it was likely that very few people here would be able to survive. Qin Feng waved his hand and stopped the Taoist protector from persuading him. Everyone, a wise man, submits to circumstances. Moreover, I'm a true disciple of Xingchen School. According to the rules of the sect, I'm qualified to be the current headmaster of Xingchen School. This is not considered overstepping the heavenly rules of Xingchen School. Qin Feng's words paused. His expression was indifferent as he glanced at everyone present. Of course, if I were to become the sect leader, it would be beneficial to the elders who have sealed themselves for countless eras. I have the inheritance of the star sect's Taoist from the ancient star sect in my hands. The orthodoxy contained a part of the star sect's supreme profoundness. I can say that if I were to obtain this orthodoxy, the chances of some of you achieving Tao and becoming a god would increase by at least 10%. After threatening them, there had to be benefits. Give a carrot after a stick. If these people were not sensible, Qin Feng did not mind killing them. Taoist Xing Chen's inheritance, primeval true king? Among them, ancestral Master Glacier looked at Qin Feng in shock. Taoist? Only in the first era of the primordial age, a Deshang existence was qualified to be called a Taoist. The primordial age Taoist, the creation Taoist, the Dinghai Taoist, and the heavenly thunder Taoist were all extremely terrifying ancient existences. The Taoist Xing Chen was one of them. His understanding of the great Tao of stars had reached a level that was beyond the reach of the younger generation. Qin Feng said that he had obtained a part of the Taoist Xing Chen's inheritance and was willing to impart it to everyone. How could they not be tempted? Back then, Emperor Ziwei had only obtained a small portion of Taoist Xing Chen's relics and established the famous primordial chaos Xingchen School. If they could share a portion of Taoist Xing Chen's inheritance, The many powerhouses of Xingqian school present would definitely be able to improve their abilities greatly and be one step closer to becoming a god. Of course, I'm serious. Qin Feng looked indifferent. Although Qin Feng had heard of Taoist Xingqian before, he had nothing to do with him. Naturally, the so-called legacy was non-existent. This was pure deception. However, the inheritance of the Star Great Path from the galaxy was not inferior to the inheritance of the Star Taoist. Qin Feng moved his hand and the primordial god power in his body changed into the star attribute. An aura that belonged to a star god leaked out. That was the aura that truly belonged to a star god. A true god of the Tao of stars. Although he was a star god from another world, he was still a true star god. The many powerhouses of Xingqian school instantly believed him. This aura that belonged to a star god was different from the mysteries of Xingqian school's inheritance. It must be another kind of inheritance that was different from Xingqian school's star Tao. Greetings, primeval sect leader. Patriarch Glacier was the first to step forward and officially recognized Qin Feng as the sect leader of Xingqian school. Greetings, primeval sect leader. Another old antique pondered for a moment and immediately chose to step forward. Compared to attaining the Tao, submitting to the primeval sect leader was nothing. Greetings, primeval sect leader. One by one, the figures bowed down. Regardless of whether it was the outer sect disciples, inner sect disciples, or the many elders of the star sect, even some of the trusted subordinates that the Purple Star Sovereign had painstakingly managed, they had no choice but to bow down under such a grand momentum. Good. Since everyone thinks highly of Qin Feng can also make an oath here. I will definitely lead Xingqian school to a higher level and fulfill the wishes of the past generations of seniors. Qin Feng laughed heartily as a formless energy gushed out from his body, lifting everyone up. As many elders submitted one after another, Qin Feng could clearly feel that in the void of Xingqian school, a strand of fate that was like a river of stars separated and fell into the top of his head. The fate above his head increased greatly. The majestic fate shook faintly, as if it was affecting some unknown existence in the unseen world. Qin Feng faintly felt that an unknown existence that was related to him was about to be born. A deity position, and a deity position related to the star Tao. A strange look flashed across Qin Feng's eyes. Obviously, he had stabilized his position as the sect leader of Xingqian school and obtained a part of the star Tao's fate. His fate with some deity positions of star Tao that were about to be born had increased. No wonder all the previous sect leaders of Xingqian school wanted to unify the various branches of the star Tao, Qin Feng thought to himself. This change had deepened his understanding of the path of fate. However, Qin Feng also had a chance. Since he had become the sect leader of Xingqian school, it was imperative for him to unify the various branches of the star Tao. Whether it was for the star Tao's fate or for the astral ancestors' plan. The star Tao had once been unified in the ancient Ziwei era. After obtaining the complete fate of the star Tao, Emperor Ziwei not only stabilized his position as the ancient emperor, but also transcended in one fell swoop and became the master of the star god system, proving the position of the master god. After Emperor Ziwei, the god dynasty dissipated in the rolling time. Later, it became the primordial Xingqian school. The primordial Xingqian school occupied most of the fate of the star Tao. For hundreds of eras, it had produced many true gods of the star Tao. However, the full moon overflowed. During the internal strife, the primordial Xingqian school disintegrated. The few branches of the main branch became the Xingqian school, the Tianliang sect, the Sun-Moon Sword sect, and many other small branches. If he wanted to reintegrate, he would have to annex the other two branches, the Tianliang sect and the Sun-Moon Sword sect. In the following period of time, Qin Feng would do his best to integrate the Xingqian school and strive to completely control the Xingqian school. The domain of stars was surging. That day, the starlight of Emperor Ziwei suddenly disappeared, alarming many people. Without a doubt, there was only one truth to such a phenomenon. Emperor Ziwei had fallen. Emperor Ziwei was the current sect leader of Xingqian school. Everyone knew about the 72 Profound Gate. What kind of person was capable of causing such an ancient expert to fall? On the surface, the domain of stars was calm, but in reality, there were turbulent undercurrents. Many sects had sent spies to the domain of stars to find out the truth. In the Lingshao Hall, endless starlight fell, surrounded by dense stellar energy. On the central throne, there was a star god robe draped over his shoulders. On his head was a sun-moon star crown. His face was handsome and his face was like jade. Qin Feng leaned on the throne and rubbed his forehead. He had just sent away the last batch of elders who came to express their loyalty. These days, the Xingqian school had come to meet the sect leader one after another, making him feel a little tired. This was not physical fatigue, but mental fatigue. However, the feeling of power in his hands was indeed admirable. However, Qin Feng was also a little alarmed. This time, he had killed the son of the Emperor Ziwei god. Emperor Ziwei might have left behind a second primordial spirit to be reborn. However, he had probably offended another powerful god system. Chapter 1274. Junior Brother Hierarch has just become the Hierarch of Xingqian School. This is a joyous occasion. Why are you so worried? In the spacious hall, an indifferent voice sounded. Qin Feng looked up from the throne in the center and saw Wang Daoyi walking in from outside the hall. He had a faint smile on his face. He looked unusually handsome and ethereal. Senior Brother Wang? Qin Feng nodded with a bitter smile. Qin Feng had a good impression of Senior Brother Wang. Firstly, they were allies. Secondly, they had always been on good terms. Senior Brother Wang, you're not the Hierarch. You don't know the troubles of being the Hierarch. Qin Feng was helpless. Junior Brother, you're probably worried about the Star God system taking revenge after killing that Star God, right? Wang Daoyi smiled faintly. He seemed to have seen through Qin Feng's worries. On the throne, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows and looked deeply at Wang Daoyi. Senior Brother, do you have any suggestions? Junior Brother Hierarch, you don't have to worry. He chuckled. If you offended other god systems, you might be in trouble. However, you don't have to worry about the Star God system for now. Why is that? Qin Feng's expression changed. Qin Feng had been busy cultivating all these years. He didn't know as much about the intertwining god systems as those old antique. The Star God system was once a famous god system, especially Emperor Ziwei. He obtained the ancient Ziwei main star and the Tao of Emperor's origins. He was a famous peerless master god of the star path. Wang Daoyi smiled faintly. Qin Feng frowned. I have some understanding of this as well. In the Ziwei era, Ziwei Tianzi didn't transcend alone. Instead, he transcended with many star gods. He could be said to be fully fledged. Compared to some chief gods who had just broken through, Ziwei Tianzi was much more powerful. In the next few eras, there were many star gods who obtained Ziwei's legacy and transcended. Logically speaking, although the star god system can't be stronger than the Eastern Wilderness god system, which is one of the many god systems in the Spirit Sea continent, it shouldn't be. Nothing is impossible. Wang Daoyi shook his head. Sometimes, when one's luck is bad, even drinking a mouthful of cold water will cause one to bleed. What's more, the heavens are constantly changing. Although the sovereigns are powerful and are said to be able to traverse the heavens, they are not absolute powerhouses. There are times when they fall. Could it be that Emperor Ziwei has fallen? Qin Feng was shocked. Wang Daoyi shook his head, looked at Qin Feng, and smiled. He didn't perish, he went missing. I got the news from an old friend. Almost the entire star god system has fallen into a strange world. I'm afraid that even if he didn't fall, it would be very difficult for him to return in a short period of time. A strange world? Qin Feng was slightly stunned. What kind of world could fall into the hands of a master god? But soon, Qin Feng came to his senses. In a terrifying place like the Eldritch world, even if thousands of god systems were to enter, they would not be able to leave, let alone one god system. That world is very strange. It should be a huge world belonging to the 33 heavens that was discovered not long ago. That place is full of unfathomable dangers. According to the prophecy of the Master God of Destiny, that place contains great opportunities, but it is also very dangerous. At this point, Wang Daoi's expression was somewhat solemn. Qin Feng was speechless. A huge world belonging to the 33 heavens referred to a huge world that could accommodate a Master God's true body. Such a world's foundation was far stronger than ordinary extraterritorial continents. Such a huge world was usually called a main continent. Qin Feng had heard of many main continents from the Life Goddess, such as the Giant God's Continent, the Supreme Divine Realm Continent, the Source Continent, and so on. The Eldritch world was also one of the main continents. However, in terms of foundation, the Eldritch world was one of the best among the main continents. It was in existence at the top of the pyramid. However, don't let your guard down. Emperor Crepe Myrtle left behind many backups in the ancient times. Many old antiques are related to this master god. If those people find out that you killed Crepe Myrtle Star, I'm afraid they will find trouble with you. Qin Feng's expression suddenly froze. After Wang Daoi finished speaking, he glanced at Qin Feng, who was sitting on the central throne. But you don't have to worry. If I'm not wrong, you're already a boundary emperor. Your strength is not weaker than those old antiques. Hearing this, Qin Feng smiled slightly. Just as Wang Daoi said. After breaking through to the boundary emperor realm, coupled with the enhancement of the master god space, Qin Feng's strength was not as simple as an ordinary boundary emperor. Unless he encountered those primordial ancestors. Otherwise, he could go anywhere he wanted. Moreover, as the primordial lands and the galaxy continent became Dao integration stage holy sages, his strength was constantly increasing. The 13th water type, heavenly law, was about to take shape. At that time, he would take another step toward the 5th stage of heavenly law, the heavenly emperor realm. Buzz. Suddenly, the expressions of the two people in the hall changed as they looked into the distance. Somewhere, the great Tao began to vibrate, the entire void shook, the heavenly realm resonated, and time and space turned into sound that went straight to one's heart. What's this fluctuation? At this moment, countless experts' expressions changed at the same time as they looked above a huge lake. Thousands of Daos are resonating. Is someone trying to break through to the deity position? In the Lingxiao Hall, Qin Feng couldn't help but stand up from the central throne. After 4 years, someone finally started to break through to the deity position? I wonder what deity position it is? Wang Daoi also couldn't help but stand up and look at the end of the void that was fluctuating endlessly. As everyone knows, the first deity position is the deity position. The first to achieve Dao will have a lot of luck. It seems that someone finally can't hold back anymore. Humph, the deity king, I'm afraid it's the king's pioneer. Qin Feng's lips curled into a cold smile. There were benefits to being the first to achieve Dao, but it might not necessarily be the king of gods. Boom! Torrential rain poured down from the sky. In the next moment, it was as if they had suddenly fallen into an ocean of water-type energy. The boundless water vapor seemed to have become abnormally spiritual as it was watered by the rich water-type energy. Even a huge volcano like the Crimson Flame Extreme Spiritual Volcano's fire energy was suppressed to less than 3 feet. The temperature of the sun in the sky seemed to be covered by the rain in the sky. Endless torrential rain fell, forming a flood. Many places were covered by the rain. At this moment, the Linghai continent seemed to have fallen into the torrential rain and turned into a floating island in the surging heavenly river. It's the heavenly river torrent from the Tao confirmation phenomenon. Someone is trying to break through to the water vein deity position. At this moment, countless water-type cultivators couldn't help but turn pale with fright. A huge suppression of the water veins laws fell from the sky. Some of the weaker ones couldn't help but kneel on the spot. In the numinous sky hall, Qin Feng's complexion was already ashen. The enormous pressure of the laws came over, and a layer of extremely terrifying aura appeared around him, fiercely pushing back the pressure of the laws. Chapter 1275. The aura of an ordinary 15th-order cultivator was very strong. Only ordinary King Realm experts would be able to withstand it for a moment or two. If an ordinary cultivator tried to resist it, they would most likely be severely injured or even die from their body explosion. However, to Qin Feng, this suppression was too weak. He only witnessed the Tao phenomenon. The water-type innate origin laws, as well as the many types of post-celestial phenomena that came with the innate deity position, began to appear and manifest their powers. Torrential rain poured down as countless spiritual rain gathered and descended upon the three realms, nourishing all living things and reviving their spirituality. This was the power of the spiritual nurturing Tao manifested by the post-celestial phenomenon, awakening of all living things. Suddenly, many living things realized that the time around them had slowed down. Whether it was their speed or their speech, it seemed to have become fast and slow at the same time. While they were still in shock, it suddenly returned to normal. There seemed to be a huge river surging and roaring through all living things. This was the post-celestial phenomenon, time flies. The power of the Tao of time manifested. Waves surged as if an azure ocean was shaking endlessly. Countless cold ocean currents surged endlessly in one direction. This was the post-celestial phenomenon, tidal Tao worship, manifesting the power of the Tao of tides. Innate water-type deity position. In the Lingshao Palace, a few words seemed to be said through gritted teeth. The killing intent in Qin Feng's eyes was extremely sharp. As a boundary emperor of the water-type lineage, the innate water-type deity position was his exclusive property. Someone actually dared to try for the innate water-type deity position before him. Wang Daoi saw the extremely gloomy expression in Qin Feng's eyes and secretly shook his head. How important was the Tao validation method? Before the deity position was born, one could also try to break through. However, in this way, the difficulty of Tao validation would increase by several times. However, it was not impossible to succeed. Most experts would wait until the deity position matured and the time for it to be born before fighting for it. Once one could gain the favor of the deity position and assimilate it into one's body, the difficulty of Tao validation would decrease significantly. In fact, to put it simply, it was like sailing against the current or sailing with the current. One could still reach the destination. Sailing with the current was undoubtedly much simpler and more labor-saving. However, sailing against the current might not necessarily fail. As long as one was lucky enough and had enough strength, one could reach the destination. Wang Daoi's gaze fell on Qin Feng. He knew that this junior brother of the sect master cultivated the water origin. I wonder which expert is trying to forcefully break through the innate water origin deity position. The innate water origin deity position is one of the highest deity positions in the water lineage. It's not easy and it will attract countless water lineage existences to stop it. Could it be some ancient monster? Wang Daoi guessed. The post-celestial anomalies were still erupting. There were over 260 types of auspicious phenomena manifested by the post-celestial Tao. Countless living beings and cultivators in the endless void gasped in amazement. There are more than 260 types of post-celestial anomalies. This person's cultivation base is probably beyond imagination. In the depths of the continent, many experts were secretly shocked. It was common knowledge that these manifestations of the post-celestial Grand Tao were manifestations of the foundation of the Tao convergence laws. The stronger one's foundation was, the more types of post-celestial Tao phenomena one could manifest. In the Lingshao Hall, Qin Feng's expression became more and more gloomy. When Wan Gi, the war god of light of Xingqian school, attempted to break through to the deity position, he had only manifested 149 anomalies. This existence's attempt to break through to the innate water origin deity position had caused more than 260 types of post-celestial Tao phenomena to appear. He was probably much stronger than Wan Gi. I must not let him succeed. Killing intent flashed in Qin Feng's eyes like thunder. In the battle for the deity position, there was no retreat. However, now was not the time to destroy that person's Tao convergence. This was only the first step of the Tao convergence. When the 282nd post-celestial anomaly manifested in the void, the manifestation of the post-celestial Tao came to an end. However, it only lasted for a moment. In the void, the fluctuations of the great Tao laws became even stronger. The manifestation of the culmination great Tao began. The dense ocean surged violently. An ancient existence with a blurry face appeared above the ocean. He was sitting cross-legged on the ocean, and the endless ocean trembled with his breathing. The culmination great Tao phenomenon, see Emperor Tao. It manifested the power of the ocean Tao. The endless ocean twisted and pitch-black water gushed out from a pitch-black place. It turned into an apocalyptic torrent that destroyed everything in the world, turning everything into chaos and cleansing the world. This was the culmination great Tao phenomenon, ultimate destruction. It manifested the power of the ultimate Tao. Balls of darkness that were as deep as the abyss and without the slightest bit of light appeared. It was like a hazy black fog that surged into the world. It was as dense as ink and instantly spread out. It completely covered the light of the sun that illuminated the three realms. This was the culmination great celestial anomaly, total darkness. It manifested the power of the Tao of darkness. It was also a type of stellar anomaly. The myriad realms trembled, and the immense power of the great Tao spread out. Countless people were immersed in the nomological phenomenon. Countless experts broke through because of it. Many people took the opportunity to collect the nomological spirit seeds and fuse them into their bodies, condensing the power of the water nomological laws in one fell swoop. However, even more experts were only comprehending. They did not absorb the wisps of spirit seeds transformed by the water nomological phenomenon. This way their strength would increase greatly, and they could even comprehend the water nomological laws. However, in this way, once a person succeeded in proving their Tao and fused with the water origin nomological laws to become a water origin god, they would naturally owe that person a portion of their luck. The situation of the worship of luck would then be set. This was also a certain degree of support from the heavenly Tao to those who proved their Tao. The stronger the Tao phenomenon, the greater the increase in luck received from the water vein. Those who proved their Tao could use this opportunity to make up for a portion of the missing luck of the water vein. At this moment, it was unknown how many cultivators of the water attribute in the world owed the person who had proven their Tao, and how many people had contributed a portion of their luck to that person who had proven their Tao. There were a total of nearly 33 types of culmination Tao phenomena and auspicious signs. Countless experts on the continent were dumbfounded and overshadowed by him. 33 types of culmination Tao phenomena, more than 30 types of culmination Tao phenomena. I'm afraid that at least a water-type sub-emperor is proving their Tao. In the Lingshao Hall, Wang Daoi's expression was somewhat grave. Qin Feng's expression was so gloomy that it could drip water. A water-type sub-emperor should not be a nameless figure. There were many water-type experts who survived from the Primordial Age and the Antiquity Age. However, there should only be a handful of them who could cultivate to the level of a water-type sub-emperor. Apart from the ancient dragon kings of the dragon race, there should only be. Wang Daoyi frowned. Suddenly, he paused and looked up. Rumble! The vibrations of the myriad Tao intensified. In the void, all living beings and cultivators could see a faint blue divine light appear in the sky. The seawater turned into a mirror, the tides turned into a robe, and the boundless divine light bloomed into a huge figure. The figure of the divine light possessed boundless majesty. Any living being could see this person's appearance clearly. This was the sovereign manifestation of a Tao integration phenomenon. It's him? Chapter 1276. Him. Seeing Wang Daoyi's cold sneer, Qin Feng looked up. The Tao integration phenomenon, the sovereign manifestation. Any living being could see the appearance of the person who was proving his Tao. It was a handsome young man with immeasurable pressure, but there was an extremely evil and wild aura between his brows. At this moment, he was exuding a mighty power that shook endless space and time. This water-type sub-emperor who was proving his Tao was obviously not from the dragon tribe. Seeing Wang Daoyi's subtle gaze, Qin Feng's expression darkened. Senior brother Wang, do you know this person? I've seen him once in a certain era. He left a deep impression. Wang Daoyi sneered. Seeing Qin Feng look over, he immediately pointed at that person and said, Junior brother, don't be surprised. You must have heard of this person's name. This person is related to a great emperor from the Primordial Age. That great emperor is called the Sky River Great Emperor. Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, the phenomenon in the sky became even more intense. The Sky River Great Emperor? Qin Feng's eyes flickered. He was well versed in ancient and modern classics, so he naturally knew of this great emperor's reputation. The Sky River Great Emperor was the last Taoist of the Primordial Age, the disciple of Taoist Yuan. Taoist Yuan was an extremely Dishang of the water-type lineage. The number 1 water-type technique, the Sky River Righteous technique, was created by this Taoist. The Sky River Great Emperor was also an extremely talented person. In the Primordial Age, there were not many who could be called great emperors. However, every great emperor had a great chance of proving his Tao and becoming a chief god. The Sky River Great Emperor had once dominated one of the Primordial Age eras, but he was not very lucky. In the end, he fell at the threshold of becoming a chief god for some inexplicable reason. Qin Feng looked at Wang Daoyi. Could the being who was proving his Tao be the reincarnation of the Sky River Great Emperor's original spirit, or simply a disciple? However, Qin Feng shook his head. If the Sky River Great Emperor was the reincarnation of the original spirit, Qin Feng was more willing to believe that Chen Tianhe was the reincarnation of the Sky River Great Emperor's original spirit. Junior brother, you don't have to guess. This Sky River Great General is just an innate sacred spirit suppressed by the Sky River Great Emperor in the past. Wang Daoyi sneered. This innate saint spirit was an evil god that roamed the rivers in the ancient times. It was suppressed by the Heavenly River Emperor, but the Heavenly River Emperor was merciful. Considering that it was of the same race, the Heavenly River Emperor only sealed it and did not kill it. The Heavenly River Emperor's intention was to train the innate saint spirit. As long as the innate saint spirit repents, it will be released. Who would have thought that the Sky River Great Emperor would make a breakthrough at the last moment and die suddenly? He didn't have time to arrange for the future, Wang Daoyi sighed softly. Qin Feng's eyes flickered as he spoke. According to the ancient records, the Sky River Great Emperor seemed to have left behind the inheritance of the Sky River Sword sect, but later on, the Sky River Sword sect was destroyed for no reason. There was already some speculation in his eyes. You're right. The people of the Sky River Sword faction didn't know about the existence of the innate divine spirit. Not only did the innate divine spirit run away, but he also took the opportunity to destroy the Sky River Sword faction. Most of the Sky River Great Emperor's heritage fell into his hands. Wang Daoi's expression was indifferent. A hint of emotion flashed through his eyes. "Senior brother, you seem to be very familiar with the Sky River Great Emperor?" Qin Feng glanced at Wang Daoi. Such a secret was definitely not recorded in the ancient record. Since Wang Daoi was so familiar with this secret, it was hard for Qin Feng not to have other thoughts. Wang Daoi seemed to have noticed the curiosity in Qin Feng's eyes. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the huge Tao-proving phenomenon in the distance that was becoming more and more intense. "That was my first life, and I also happened to know the young Sky River Great Emperor." Qin Feng's heart was slightly shaken. This Wang Daoi was too mysterious. He was actually from the same era as the Sky River Great Emperor. Wang Daoi didn't want to say much about the Sky River Great Emperor, so he changed the topic. After the Sky River Great Emperor was destroyed, the innate divine spirit who called himself the Sky River Marshal didn't get any great benefit. He was full of desire to break through to the innate water origin deity position of that era, but his luck wasn't very good. There was no innate water origin deity position in that era. Wang Daoi's eyes flashed with a hint of schadenfreude. Qin Feng was a little speechless. It was really bad luck. The innate deity position wasn't born in every era. Some eras might give birth to some innate deity positions, but they might not be able to give birth to the innate water origin deity position. If one took a step back and settled for the next best thing, the gap between the heavenly deity position and mid-deity position would be huge. First of all, the heavenly deity position and mid-deity position would be suppressed when they met another innate deity position of the same element. Secondly, the heavenly deity position's Tao, even if they became an overgod, they could only be an acquired overgod. Compared to the innate overgods who achieved their Tao with the innate deity position, they were obviously inferior. If they wanted to continue breaking through, they would have to spend a lot of time to return to the innate realm. Some extremely powerful existences wouldn't be willing to easily become an acquired deity position, even if they had to wait for a few more eras. It seems that after being suppressed by the Sky River Great Emperor, the Sky River Marshal's luck seemed to be getting worse and worse. After many eras, he appeared one after another and moved around. Either he didn't have a suitable water origin deity position, or he was stopped by other experts when he wreaked havoc as an evil deity. Wang Daoi sneered. In the fourth era of the ancient era, he had a chance. That was when he was at his strongest and the primordial flood had yet to recede. He stirred up the flood and wreaked havoc. He called himself the evil ancestor of the Sky River, which was extremely terrifying. At that time, the great emperor of the South Wilderness in the Spirit Sea continent had just transcended. Many ancient experts were forced to seal themselves by the great emperor of the South Wilderness. It was the turn of the eras, and there was almost no one who could defeat him. He controlled the water of 10,000 rivers. If he used the Sky River to destroy the world and rebuild the universe, he might have been able to transcend. Unfortunately, the great emperor of the North Wilderness was born at that time. Wang Daoi's smile was a little gloomy. Qin Feng also shook his head slightly in his heart. The great emperor of the North Wilderness was also known as the Ancient Black Emperor. This emperor's attainment in the way of water control was comparable to that of Taoist Yuan, who was also the ancient son of heaven. Although the ancient Black Emperor did not develop the first water arts like the Sky River Righteous technique, his water arts power was earth-shattering. In one battle, the real body of the evil ancestor of the Sky River was shattered, and the name of the evil ancestor was lost with the wind. He himself was like a frightened stray dog, but I didn't expect him to come back to life and recover his quasi-emperor cultivation. In general, this deity was glorious. The names of the deities he used were recorded in myths and unofficial history. They were all water evil deities who wreaked havoc in an area. He was one of the more difficult guys to deal with among the primordial experts. Wang Daoi looked at Qin Feng and said seriously, "If there are no accidents with this deity's foundation, there is probably more than an 80% chance of him becoming an innate water origin deity." 80%. In the eyes of many experts, this probability was equivalent to success. Chapter 1277. The Sky River Evil Ancestor Had to Die. A water-type origin deity position might not be born in an era, or even several or dozens of eras. Qin Feng would not allow anyone else to occupy the water-type origin deity position first. As the two of them conversed, the sovereign manifestation gradually ended. Almost at the same time as this phenomenon ended, the two of them disappeared from the Lingshao Hall. Next was the all-heavens obstruction stage. This was the only opportunity given to other water-type experts to participate in the all-heavens obstruction stage. The two of them moved extremely quickly. The power of a quasi-emperor cut through time and space. Although the Sky River Evil Ancestor chose to transcend his tribulation in the Sunken Abyss Spirit Domain, which was adjacent to the Langya Spirit Domain, this distance was nothing compared to Qin Feng, Wang Daoi, and the others. It was as if they were worlds apart. The Sunken Abyss Spirit Domain was adjacent to the Langya Spirit Domain, and it was also a water-type domain. The terrain here was low to begin with, and there were many rifts and valleys. However, there were also many water systems, which formed many waterfalls and abysses. The terrain was very unique. There were also many water-type sects here. The Spirit River Sword Sect, which was one of the 72 mysterious sects, was located in this prefecture. The Spirit River Sword Sect was ranked 53rd among the 72 mysterious sections. Its strength was not outstanding, but it was not particularly weak either. The Sky River Evil Ancestor chose to transcend his tribulation in the Oblivion Valley, which was the mountain gate of the Spirit River Sword Sect. This was one of the few water-type paradises that had been upgraded from a spirit mountain to a saint realm after the arrival of the Golden Age. Rumble! 10,000 lightning bolts fell from the sky. When Qin Feng and Wang Daoi arrived, the all-heavens obstruction stage had already begun. Terrifying bolts of heavenly lightning that were enough to shatter the heavens descended from the sky. Rumble! In the Oblivion Valley in the distance, beams of azure divine light shot out and easily blocked the bolts of divine lightning. Boom! The thunderclouds in the sky became more intense and dense, covering thousands of miles of land. It was as if the existence in the Oblivion Valley had offended the heavens. The rolling dark clouds and lightning roiled, enveloping hundreds of thousands of miles of land with the Oblivion Valley as the center. This caused countless experts who were watching the tribulation in the dark to be aghast. Rumble! 10,000 bolts of lightning suddenly struck, and the rifts, mountains, and waterfalls around the Oblivion Valley were instantly turned into ashes. This seemed to be the wrath of the heavens. Fusing the Tao and seizing the deity position. This was the power to seize the heavens. Naturally, the heavens were furious, sending down a great calamity to kill the unfilial child. Any one of these heavenly thunders could easily kill a 14th-order supreme being. In the center of the Oblivion Valley, numerous azure flags blossomed like jellyfish under the terrifying lightning. The azure divine light that filled the sky flew out, supporting the light screen of 1,000 miles above the Oblivion Valley. Countless bolts of divine lightning covered the light screen, and the lightning was extinguished inch by inch. It's the Milky Way Water Control Flag. Seeing this set of flags, many ancient experts had different expressions on their faces. The Milky Way Water Control Flag was an inherited treasure of the immemorial Milky Way Sword Sect. Rumor has it that there were a total of 18 banners, crafted by Taoist Yuan. The banners were rumored to be able to summon the Milky Way to destroy the world. This set of divine banners had long been lost ever since the Heavenly River Sword sect was destroyed. Even if someone tried to imitate it, the difference in power was too great. The array set up by this set of genuine divine banners could trap and kill an innate origin god. The power of the 81 bolts of heaven punishment lightning was enormous. When the 81 bolts of heaven punishment lightning struck, the entire array had already dimmed, and it let out a sorrowful cry. Obviously, although the set of flags was not destroyed due to its great power, it had suffered heavy injuries. This set of flags could not be used for a short period of time. Seeing this scene, many experts in the dark heaved a sigh of relief. If they had the Milky Way water control flag, even myriad saints would have to think twice before blocking the path. The final 9 bolts of heavenly punishment lightning fell, and the entire Oblivion Valley was razed to the ground. However, that figure remained as steady as a mountain. Boundless azure divine light circulated, and it was as if the space within a radius of 5,000 kilometers had been suppressed by this terrifying power. A strange divine sword appeared in his hand. It was an azure divine sword, as if it was condensed from the essence of the world's ocean. The Aqua Diffraction Sword, ranked 19th on the Myriad Heavens divine weapon list. Wang Daoi's face was extremely gloomy. The Aqua Diffraction Sword was once the sword of the Sky River Great Emperor. Qin Feng glanced at Wang Daoi when he heard this. There were more than 30 divine weapons recorded on the Myriad Heavens divine weapon list. Every divine weapon recorded on the Myriad Heavens divine weapon list was a famous treasure that had once caused a sensation in the Myriad Heavens divine weapon list. Although they were not innate spirit treasures, their power surpassed that of innate spirit treasures. Every divine weapon on the Myriad Heavens divine weapon list had a great origin and a magnificent battle record. The Aqua Diffraction Sword, ranked 19th on the Myriad Heavens divine weapon list, had once been the sword of the Sky River Great Emperor. It was an innate water sword embryo that Taoist Yuan had refined for the Sky River Great Emperor by gathering the essence of 10,000 waters. This sword had been nourished by the Sky River Great Emperor's natal vitality, and its power had been raised to a rather terrifying level. An ordinary 15th level heaven rank expert wielding this sword could injure a king. The quasi-emperor Sky River evil ancestor wielding this sword would become extraordinarily terrifying. As expected, he came prepared. No wonder Wang Daoi said that the chances of this divine proving Dao were as high as 80%. Qin Feng's heart sank. This was going to be a formidable opponent. The 81 bolts of heavenly thunder ended. The dark clouds in the sky did not disperse. Instead, they became denser. An extremely terrifying power emerged, and the Myriad Heavens divine Tao appeared. Many existences who were secretly watching felt a sense of foreboding, and a trace of coldness appeared in their hearts. Next was the second stage of the Myriad Heavens obstruction, the Myriad Saints obstruction. When the heavens sent down a calamity, at this time, any expert could enter to obstruct the Tao. Those who obstructed the Tao were blessed by the heavens and earth. If a king entered and was blessed by the heavens and earth, one could imagine how terrifying it would be. This would be the most terrifying calamity for those who wanted to break through to the divine realm. If they could kill those who had proven Tao, there would be many benefits for those who obstructed the Tao. Under the balanced law of the heavens and earth divine Tao, there was a certain chance of obtaining a portion of the Tao's comprehension of the heavens and earth divine Tao. Of course, if they could repel those who obstructed the Tao, there would be many benefits for those who had proven Tao. Under the balanced law of the heavens and earth divine Tao, those who had proven Tao could openly kill and plunder the heavens and earth divine Tao. Normally, there would not be such a good opportunity. Qin Feng's expression was calm. Not only him, but countless water-type experts in the dark were waiting for the Myriad Saints' obstruction to descend, waiting for the outcome. In the heavens and earth, There must not be any other innate water-type origin god other than themselves. As if it had sensed the killing intent emitted by many experts, the tribulation chi in the sky became even denser. The myriad heavens divine Tao manifested, and countless ancient true spirits began to appear. Shadows were everywhere, and they covered billions of void. It was abnormally terrifying. This was one of the transformations of the myriad saints' obstruction. It was also known as the true spirit obstruction. Countless heavens and earth divine Tao summoned some ancient true spirits. At the forefront were the four great origin laws of earth, water, wind, and fire. The earth origin law manifested an earth true spirit, the Gauchan. The fire origin source law materialized a vermilion bird. The wind origin law manifested a great green feathered rock. The water origin law manifested a gigantic black tortoise. In addition, there were many other heavens and earth divine Tao transformed into various types of true spirits that appeared together. With a furious roar, they pounced toward the Oblivion Valley. The Oblivion Valley seemed to be engulfed in boundless chaos and was about to sink into oblivion. Chapter 1278. Kill. Just as the myriad of Daos manifested their true spirits to obstruct the path, the second stage of the heavens obstructing the path had begun. Some water-type supreme beings walked out from the shadows and participated in the obstructions openly. At this moment, many water-type supreme beings stepped into the field. It was as if they had received blessings from the heavens and earth, and their strength increased exponentially. If you want to attain your Tao, you'll have to go through us first. Water-type innate origin god, don't even think about getting your hands on the position of supremacy. Kill him. The evil calamity chi solidified and shot towards the Oblivion Valley along with the true spirits that were obstructing the path. On the side, Qin Feng and Wang Daoi stood by. It wasn't time for Qin Feng to step into the field yet. Most of the people who were attacking now were level 14 perfected water-type supremes, and some level 15 lesser celestial masters. This commotion could be said to be extremely grand. Even the top experts hiding in the dark were aghast. Boom! At this moment, many experts who were hiding in the dark felt a chill spreading from the void all of a sudden. They looked up. A water-like sword light swept out from the center of the Oblivion Valley. Chi! The true spirits that were charging the fastest were sliced into 7, 8, and then dozens of pieces. And the dozens of water-type supreme beings who were charging the fastest were like crispy carrots in the sword light. They didn't even have time to scream before they turned into pieces and fell to the ground. How direct and efficient was that? This scene was so shocking that some of the water-type supreme beings who wanted to charge out turned pale. A few supreme kings sneered as they looked at the remaining water-type supreme beings who were hiding in the shadows. A bunch of idiot. How dare you obstruct the path when you've attained your Tao? You deserve to be cannon fodder. Qin Feng's expression didn't change as he looked at this scene coldly. To the few water-type supreme beings hiding in the shadows, the more of these water-type supreme beings died, the better. The more of them died, the more condensed the water fortune would be, and there would be fewer competitors. This could be considered as clearing the area before the Tao affirmation. Why did you all come here to die? The water element supremacy will only benefit you all if I obtain it. I can promise you that after I attain the innate water origin god, I will not interfere with the distribution of the water vein's fortune. Within the Oblivion Valley, a pleasant and slightly magnetic voice rang out, carrying traces of goodwill. This sword strike intimidated many experts. With a single sword strike, dozens of water-type supreme powerhouses had been cut down like carrots. How could this not be terrifying? As soon as these words were spoken, many of the water-type supreme beings in the surroundings began to hesitate. The reason why everyone joined in the obstruction was that they were unwilling to let the innate origin deity position be taken away. Secondly, he was worried that his water vein providence would be affected and affect his Tao attainment. It should be known that once one became a water vein true god, one would need to gather the water vein fortune of the realm in order to continue to strive for the position of water vein master god. Master gods. What master gods? They were the exalts of a world and a bloodline. In the world, each lineage could only consecrate one sovereign in an epoch. Thus, after becoming a true god, there had to be a hierarchy between the various factions. Suddenly, a sneering voice rang out from the darkness. Everyone, do you believe his flowery speech? If he becomes an innate water origin god, I'm afraid the first thing he would do would be to gather the water vein providence and sever other people's Tao attainment. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Do you all believe his words? That was a quasi-deity. Qin Feng pondered. On a mountain peak, he saw a treacherous-looking water quasi-deity. He was also an ancient quasi-deity. Why are you still being so long-winded with him? Instead of relying on others, it's better to rely on yourself and rely on him. Why don't we all attack together, kill him, and divide his water vein providence? At that time, it'll be good for you, good for me, good for everyone. Another voice rang out. It was a gloomy old man in a black robe whose body was shrouded in water vapor. He was also a quasi-deity and a demonic race quasi-deity at that. That's right. We don't need to kill him. We only need to injure him so that his flesh, skin, and divine soul cannot reach perfection. The fourth step will take his life. This voice was even more sinister. Kill. Numerous experts in the dark revealed killing intent. Just as the demonic race quasi-deity had said, rather than handing over their fate to others, it would be better to stake it all on their own. If this person failed the Tao integration and his fate became incomplete, everyone would have hope. Overflowing killing intent erupted as they rushed toward Oblivion Valley once again. The four strongest true spirits of laws, Gauchen, Dapeng, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, led numerous true spirits of the great Tao and bombarded Oblivion Valley. At the center of Oblivion Valley, within the hazy divine light, evil ancestor Sky River looked at the group of true spirits rushing down as well as the experts blocking his path. His expression was gloomy, and a trace of anger flashed through his eyes. If it was during normal times, he would have plenty of time to play with these ants. But now, just as the demonic race expert had said, he couldn't exhaust too much of his vitality. Otherwise, it would be easy for an accident to occur during the fourth step of the Tao integration, which would lower his chances of succeeding. However, even if I can't move, I'm not necessarily afraid of you. As long as I can drag this out for several hours, when this evil ancestor achieves his Tao, I'll definitely make you ants die a miserable death. After pondering in his heart, he made a hand seal, and a formless fluctuation spread out. There are more ambushes? Qin Feng's brows twitched. He sensed a special fluctuation that belonged to a Scandinavian nation's power. With the chief god space, he was very sensitive to the minute changes in spacetime around him. This was something that even Wang Daoi, whose cultivation was higher than his, couldn't do. With a sweep of his gaze, he sensed a trace of a peculiar space within a waterfall 1,000 miles away from Oblivion Valley. There was a huge spatial tear. A rich water world was faintly discernible. In the depths of this water world, many existences were about to tear through space-time and appear. Among those powerful auras, there was no lack of quasi-deity rank existences. Clearly, they were the reinforcements that evil ancestor Sky River had found for him. You're out of luck to have met me. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a sinister smile. Circulating the power of the chief god space, a mighty space-time storm suddenly appeared at the entrance of the Scandinavian nation and silently swept in. Rumble! The terrifying space-time storm poured in from the entrance, as if gunpowder had been poured into the Scandinavian nation, causing countless chain reactions in the depths of the Scandinavian nation. It was as if countless liquefied gas had exploded. Bang, bang, bang. Huge explosions erupted from the depths of the Scandinavian nation. In just a moment, a large part of the Scandinavian nation turned into ashes. The reinforcements that had been lying in ambush within the Scandinavian nation were mostly turned into ashes, and a small number of them were half-crippled. Poochie! At the center of Oblivion Valley, the evil ancestor Sky River, who was in the middle of activating his Scandinavian nation to release reinforcements, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, he suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with malevolence as if he wanted to devour someone. Bastard! The evil ancestor Sky River's chest was about to explode. Chapter 1279. With just one attack, more than half of his divine country, which he had painstakingly nurtured for countless epochs, had been destroyed. The Sky River evil ancestor was speechless. His divine country's entrance couldn't be exposed, or it would easily attract the attention of hostile experts. However, his divine country wasn't weak. As long as it didn't explode from the inside, there wouldn't be any problems. The chances of someone taking advantage of the opening of his divine country to launch a sneak attack were close to zero. The Sky River evil ancestor's face twisted. He had encountered such a close to zero chance. Even if he had reached the innate origin God realm, without several hundred years of recuperation, his divine country wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. Who exactly was it that was able to capture the fluctuations of the divine country's space the instant I opened it? The Sky River evil ancestor forcefully suppressed the anger and fear in his heart. The divine power in his body gradually smoothed out the backlash caused by the damage to his divine country. At the same time, his eyes scanned the surroundings, hoping to find the existence that had plotted against him. Rumble! When many true spirits and even quasi-deities rushed out, a faint blood shadow had appeared in the void at an unknown time. Wherever it passed, the void true spirits would be dyed with traces of blood. Soon after, the terrifying blood light silently transformed them into pools of blood. As for the water quasi-deities that had rushed out, they were like plants that had lost their moisture and looked like withered corpses. With a flash of red light, a hazy blood-red shadow appeared in the void. Only a pair of blood-red eyes could be seen, like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. That was an extremely terrifying expert. The way he made his entrance was shocking. So many water quasi-deities couldn't even block a single attack from him. It's him! From afar, Qin Feng's face was filled with astonishment as he looked at the blood-red figure that appeared in the void. Sixth evil ancestor? Wang Daoi looked pensive. Qin Feng's expression was strange. That blood-red shadow was none other than the sixth evil ancestor. Qin Feng had released him and forced him to harm the Qiankuan sect. He had made him an oath that was almost impossible to fulfill. Not only had he fulfilled it, but his strength had also increased greatly. At this moment, his energy fluctuations weren't inferior to those of some veteran kings. He seemed to have completely recovered his former strength, and seemed to have even improved. Qin Feng's expression remained unchanged as he stared at the blood figure. Back then, when he first met this evil ancestor, he was only at rank 14, but he did not fear him. Now that he had advanced to quasi-emperor, he was even less afraid. This evil ancestor was only a king at his peak. With Qin Feng's current cultivation, the ancient evil ancestor was no longer a big shot in his eyes. They were already on equal footing. They could even suppress and kill them. Brother Ian, you've come just in time. Although these ants can't hurt me, they're too annoying. The Sky River evil god nodded slightly when he saw the sixth evil ancestor. He sat down again. The sixth evil ancestor's blood-red eyes were cold. Sky River, I hope you remember what you promised me. Brother Ian, the two of us have already sworn the great oath of heaven and earth, yet you're still worried about this. As long as you help me get through this calamity, I will also lend you a hand. A faint voice came from the valley. Qin Feng and Wang Daoi glanced at each other. The two seemed to have reached some kind of agreement. However, both of them were evil path experts. It was not surprising that they had some connections. However, in the face of the sudden appearance of the sixth evil ancestor, many water-type experts were secretly afraid and did not dare to make a move. The sixth evil ancestor, also known as the Blood Hell Evil Ancestor, was an evil ancestor born in the depths of the endless Blood River. It was said that he was born with the ability to draw the power of the endless Blood River. His methods were extremely evil. With him blocking, ordinary kings would not be able to do anything to him. For fear of breaking the vases, no one was willing to risk their lives against this terrifying Blood Hell Evil Ancestor. On another mountain peak in the southwest corner of Oblivion Valley, there was a water-type king shrouded in light blue divine light. When he saw the Blood Hell Evil Ancestor appear, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. His gaze fell on the depths of Oblivion Valley. Sky River Evil Ancestor, you can't use the name of Sky River. Today you won't be able to escape this calamity. He crushed an ancient message jade in his hand. A stream of light flashed, and a scarlet fiery light pierced through the void and suddenly drilled out from somewhere in the endless void. It was an old man covered in flames like a fire god. He glanced at the young man shrouded in blue water beside him with disgust in his eyes and coldly snorted. He turned his gaze and searched the surroundings. A moment later, his gaze fell on the blood figure above Oblivion Valley. His pupils suddenly shrank, and in the next moment, they turned into surging flames of the sun. Sixth evil ancestor, hand over your life. In the next moment, an extremely furious roar shook the sky. In the next second, a scarlet brilliance shot out like a sun and locked onto the blood figure. The faint blurry light seemed to cut through space and time. Chi-chi. The extremely high temperature seemed to evaporate all the water vapor within thousands of miles of Oblivion Valley. It was as if a golden red sun had smashed down. Old Ancestor Extreme Yang, it's you again? Hearing this voice, the sixth evil ancestor's expression changed. He quickly grabbed with both hands, and a surge of blood-red majestic energy was born from his palms. The blood-red god power behind him was activated. The dense blood-red light dragged down the descending golden-red sun. The sixth evil ancestor's dense blood prison energy shook. He connected with the endless blood river, and the torrential blood river energy surged out in an attempt to destroy the golden red sun. Blood prison, you dare to kill so many of my universe sex disciples. Even if you run to the ends of the world, this old man will not let you go. On the golden red sun, the red-robed old man's hair was like flames, and his eyes were filled with shocking rage. Universe 8 extremities, 8 desolaces combine. Extreme Yang God Kingdom. God Kingdom strike. Within the overbearing God fire, a golden red God Kingdom filled with flames seemed to appear. It brought with it a height that could burn billions of worlds. Old fogey, don't you go overboard. I've already explained everything clearly to you guys. Back then, it wasn't me who wanted to massacre your Qiankuan sect. It was someone else who had plotted against me behind my back. Left with no choice, I had no choice. The blood prison evil ancestor's face was gloomy, and the corners of his eyes twitched violently. Under the high temperature of the god fire, the blood river energy was evaporating too much. As the blood prison old ancestor, although he could connect with the endless blood river and obtain an endless supply of blood river energy, he couldn't withstand such high temperatures. The sea of blood that he had created with his divine nation seemed to be evaporating. Blood prison, don't try to flatter me. So many of this old man's direct descendants died in your hands. Today, you will pay for this old ancestor's life. Within the flames, the extreme young old ancestor's fire energy was even more vigorous. When he thought of the countless Xian family elites that died in the hands of the blood prison evil ancestor several years ago, the extreme young old ancestor's anger soared to the heavens. His fire god power flourished even more. The blood prison evil ancestor secretly complained. His body seemed to be roasted by the overbearing flames, and his divine soul couldn't withstand the high temperature and had begun to wither. In truth, the blood prison evil ancestor felt very wronged in his heart. Back then, he was also forced by Qin Feng. Qin Feng practically forced him to his death. If not for that, he wouldn't have been able to come out. Thinking of that youth with the aura of the dragon race, the blood prison evil ancestor secretly clenched his teeth. Damn dragon race, this old ancestor swears to take revenge. No, old ghost extreme Yang's extreme Yang divine kingdom is too much of a counter to my blood prison. I can't hold on any longer. Feeling the blood sea in his body drying up and turning into nothingness, the blood prison evil ancestor felt an intense pain in his heart. That was something he had painstakingly gathered from the depths of the blood river all these years. No, I can't hold on any longer. That blood sea is the foundation of my Tao. I only managed to recover to my peak after swallowing the 8th evil ancestor. I can't throw it all away for that old bastard Sky River. The blood hell evil ancestor tried to retreat while blocking the attacks. Forget it, I'll take my leave first. Old ghost extreme Yang is not to be trifled with. He is also an immemorial powerhouse who specializes in restraining me. Anyway, I've already done my best, so it's not a violation of my oath. Having made up his mind, the blood prison evil ancestor immediately roared at Oblivion Valley behind him. Sky River, this old man can only help you here. I can't hold on any longer, so I'll take my leave first. After saying this, the blood prison evil ancestor suddenly let go of his hand and turned into a bloody light, disappearing from where he stood. Rumble! Without any obstruction, the golden sun fell and suddenly bombarded outside Oblivion Valley, blasting a huge abyss in the huge valley. Blood prison, where do you think you're going? In the abyss, a golden sun soared into the sky and chased after him. Thinking of how the blood prison evil ancestor had killed so many elites of the Xian family, the extreme young ancestor's heart almost exploded. How could he let this evil ancestor go? In the depths of the scorched earth, a piece of black coal flew out from the depths of the earth. His clothes were ragged, making him look like a beggar. His clothes didn't cover his body, but his eyes were bright as if they were about to spit fire. The Sky River evil ancestor looked in the direction the Blood River evil ancestor flew in with a face as red as a pig's liver. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Just now, he was using all his strength to stabilize the injuries caused by the explosion of his divine kingdom, so he didn't guard against the blood prison evil ancestor's escape. In an instant, extreme young ancestor's divine kingdom exploded. Now, he was even more injured. Chapter 1280. This 6th evil ancestor is really unlucky. I heard that when he was born, he caused a bloodbath in the eastern spirit region to recover his strength. He even destroyed the Heaven and Earth Sex base, and almost destroyed the Heaven and Earth Sex Foundation. Wang Daoi shook his head. No wonder Patriarch Extreme Yang is chasing after him. Patriarch Extreme Yang was once a very famous elder in the ancient era. He was once the Heaven and Earth Sex sect master. It was rumored that he once competed with the great wilderness Golden Crow race's Faith Arch for the Sun Origin Divine position. Although he lost to the Golden Crow Arch in the end, he did not lose his life. This was enough to show how powerful he was. Qin Feng sneered but did not say anything. The current sixth evil ancestor was no longer worthy of his attention. Boom! Qin Feng and Wang Daoyi were watching from the side. Some extremely powerful existences in the dark had already reacted and seized this rare opportunity to attack. Ruler's Law, Life Absorption. Ruler's Law, Freezing 30,000 miles. Boundary Thearka's Law, Divine Dragon Sword. When the three supreme laws were unleashed, they could truly shatter space and all living things. Three figures turned into beams of light and charged out, heading straight for the Oblivion Valley. Bang! Oblivion Valley used to be the Spirit River Sword Sex base. It had huge spirit veins supporting it, and it had advanced to the Sage stage in recent years. Even so, it could not withstand such a terrifying attack. With a loud rumble, the spirit veins deep in the ground completely collapsed. Countless spirit veins shattered and scattered in all directions. This scene made many Spirit River Sword Sect experts hiding in the dark feel dejected. They gritted their teeth, but there was nothing they could do. During the Tribulation Transcendence, the Spirit Mountains and Blessed Lands that were destroyed did not have any karma. They were all borne by heaven and earth. In the center, the Sky River Evil Ancestor, who was caught off guard, also suffered a huge injury. A huge force poured down on him, turning his body into pieces of flesh and blood. Ice descended and froze part of his soul. The Divine Dragon Sword flew out and almost split the Sky River Evil Ancestor's soul into two. Its Old Man Divine Water, Heavenly Venerable Ice River, and the Azure Sea Dragon King. Wang Daoyi said when he saw the three figures rapidly approaching. Qin Feng's eyes flashed. Old Man Divine Water and Empyrean Ice River were both famous water element kings in ancient times. As the palace master of the ancient Holy Water Palace, Elder Holy Water could be considered a very famous rogue cultivator. Empyrean Ice River was an ancient powerhouse of the Snow Region's Profound Sect, one of the 72 Profound Sects. He was an Ice Attribute King. The Dragon King of the Azure Sea's aura was far stronger than the Holy Water Elders. Honored Ice River was a water-type quasi-dragon emperor from the dragon race of the East Sea. She was a woman and her aura was overwhelming. Even the slightest leak of the power of a quasi-emperor's laws seemed to be able to shatter a king. As soon as the three of them attacked, the pool where the Sky River Evil Ancestor had broken through instantly collapsed. Both his divine body and divine soul were severely injured. The three figures had cold expressions on their faces. They knew very well that even if they destroyed the evil progenitor's divine body and spirit, it still wouldn't be enough to kill him. This evil ancestor was extremely powerful. During the ancient North Baron era, he was a peerless existence at the fifth level of Heavenly Realm, the Heavenly Emperor Realm. He was proficient in many powerful techniques. The Dragon King of the Azure Sea's dress fluttered in the wind. She was beautiful but cold as ice. An icy blue divine light suddenly flew out from her back and slashed toward the Sky River Evil Progenitor like two bolts of lightning. Quasi-Emperor Law, Dragon Clan Divine Light. On the huge mountain peak, Qin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The Quasi-Emperor of the Dragon Clan was different from the Quasi-Emperor Law cultivated by ordinary humans. They were both Quasi-Emperor level laws, but the Quasi-Emperor Law of the Dragon Clan carried an extremely dense dragon aura. "You can't kill me!" A cold voice resounded through the sky. In the middle of the Rift Valley, an icy blue divine light filled the sky. The Sky River Evil Progenitor's remnant body emitted a dense wave of water laws. Quasi-Emperor Law, Endless Growth. A dense wave of water laws fluctuated above the remnant body. Divine light filled the sky as if it was reversing the death aura born from the remnant body. It turned death into life and gathered countless life forces around it. The remnant body was rapidly regenerating, and the divine soul returned to its original position. Is this another type of water celestial law that has been comprehended to the extreme under the water celestial law? Old Man Divine Water, Reverend Glacier, and the Azure Sea Dragon King's expressions changed when they saw this change. Endless growth was a high-level water celestial law that was extremely difficult to cultivate, even among the many water celestial laws. Among the three present, only the Azure Sea Dragon King had successfully cultivated it. However, once it was cultivated, it would become abnormally strong and difficult to kill. It's not endless growth. On the mountain peak, Qin Feng, who had been watching the battle, shook his head. A high-level water celestial law, endless growth, was of a much higher level than his inextinguishable stars. Even now, he couldn't successfully cultivate it. He had just sensed that when the Sky River evil progenitor was reborn, there seemed to be an extremely pure and dense life aura in the depths of his heart. It was likely that the Sky River evil ancestor had also absorbed that pure high-grade life essence in order to reconstruct his true body. Sky River righteous law, Sky River world destruction. An icy-cold sword light shot out from the regenerated blurry figure's hand. Wherever the sword light went, it seemed as if the earth within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was trembling under the sword light. Blackwater shield. The Azure Sea Dragon King reacted the fastest. His expression changed slightly, and he waved his sleeve. A strange tortoiseshell shield appeared in front of him, and the mighty sword light swept past. Crackle! The tortoiseshell shield released a ring of dense icy blue divine light. It was like a radiant light source, and the sound was like rain hitting a banana leaf. It seems to be a treasure from another world? Qin Feng noticed the tortoiseshell shield instantly. A strange look flashed across his face. Holy Water Elder and Ice River Knight weren't slow either. However, Holy Water Elder's expression changed. A huge palace appeared above his head. It was rippling with icy blue divine light. It was an ultimate treasure that Holy Water Elder had painstakingly refined. The Holy Water Palace was condensed from hundreds of types of true waters. It had both residential and defensive functions. The vast sword light that could divide heaven and earth swept past. Splat! More than half of the Holy Water Palace was split open. Holy Water Elder felt as if his chest was struck by lightning. His eyes were filled with shock as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body and the Holy Water Palace in front of him were sent flying like a cannonball. King's Law, Water Curtain Lotus. Ice River Knight's face was filled with shock. The moment the sword light arrived, he activated his King's Law and turned it into water lotuses in front of him. This was a famous defensive law among the low-level water-type heavenly laws. The sharp sword light slashed past, and the lotus-shaped water curtain that was tough enough to withstand the full force of any connate spirit treasure was split open like tofu. The mighty sword light cut through Ice River Knight's wooden body, and the sword light swept across thousands of miles. It was soundless. An invisible sword mark that spanned thousands of miles appeared on the ground. Splat! Blood spurted from where he stood. The divine light in Ice River Knight's eyes dimmed. He looked at the Sky River evil ancestor with an extremely horrifying expression. His feet moved, and his body was split into two. He suddenly fell to the ground. This king's divine soul and true spirit were killed by a sword strike. Completely dead. His vitality was completely erased by a sword strike. This scene shocked many of the experts who were watching in the dark. The Sky River evil ancestor sneered. A mere ordinary king actually dared to obstruct a quasi-emperor, courting death. When a king's law collided with a boundary emperor's law, it was like an ordinary iron block colliding with a divine weapon. In the end, there was only one result. Trying to use the water curtain lotus to block his sword light? Overestimating oneself. Ignorant bumpkin, you don't understand the difference between a king and a boundary emperor. He looked up with a cold smile and locked onto the remaining dragon emperor of the Azure Sea and Elder Divine Water. He was about to speak, but in the next moment, His face froze as he sensed a terrifying danger. His expression changed greatly, and his figure flashed like lightning, moving thousands of feet away. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Splat! The icy blue brilliance followed him like a shadow, following his movement and sweeping along his body. Peerlessly sharp. Flesh and blood were separated. His entire body was suddenly separated as he moved. Just like Empyrean Ice River, he was split into two by an extremely mournful sword light that swept from behind. The moment his divine soul and divine body were split into two, the Sky River evil ancestor was terrified and angry. He saw a black shadow appear behind him from the corner of his eyes. That person was extremely handsome. He was dressed in a black robe, his long hair draped over his shoulders, his eyes were like stars, and there was a trace of evil charm at the corner of his mouth. His slender white fingers were holding an invisible azure-sharp longsword that was purely condensed from the laws. This person was Qin Feng. When the Sky River evil ancestor locked onto Ice River Knight, he used the space-time power of the Chief God Space to also lock onto the Sky River evil ancestor. When the Sky River evil ancestor killed Ice River Knight and was distracted, he seized the opportunity. He suddenly launched a sneak attack and heavily injured the Sky River evil ancestor with one sword strike. Chapter 1281. The Sky River evil ancestor was split in half, but he did not die. In the depths of his heart, an endless stream of high-level life essence was endlessly transferring life force to his divine body and even his divine soul. Splat! A sword light flashed. Under the chilling gazes of the crowd, Qin Feng chopped down with his sword again, splitting the body apart. A blue gem-like spiritual light flew out from the Sky River evil ancestor's body. It carried a strong foreign aura. Like a shooting star, it wanted to fly away as soon as it appeared. Qin Feng smiled coldly and grabbed the ice blue pearl. Sensing the rich water-type nomological fluctuations, Qin Feng calmly kept it in the creator space and completely suppressed it. My treasure! The Sky River evil ancestor let out a miserable roar. His body burned with bright divine light, turned into a ray of light, and merged with the Aqua Diffraction sword as he charged toward Qin Feng with all his might. It's useless. Although you're stronger than the average water-type quasi-emperor, it's your doomsday that you've met me. Qin Feng directly mobilized the creator space. On the spiritual platform of the heavenly court 3 feet above his head, there seemed to be an extremely glorious and huge world floating in the divine light. A huge force swept across the sky. Boom! The divine light transformed from the Aqua Diffraction sword was broken, and the huge force shattered the Sky River evil ancestor's body. The energy of time and space swept over, and it enveloped and swallowed all the scattered remnants of their bodies. No, I can't accept this. If not for, I would never have lost to you. The Sky River evil ancestor's desperate wails came from the vortex. However, a moment later, his broken body was swallowed by the creator space, and his voice disappeared. The Sky River evil ancestor's divine body and divine soul were decomposed by the creator space's power, turning into pure yuan qi for the crystal wall to absorb, completely turning into nourishment for the creator space. The most important quasi-emperor divine spark was slowly analyzed and purified by the creator space, turning into the accumulation of the creator space's nomological comprehension. It was also used as a reference material for Qin Feng to comprehend other water-type heavenly laws. Qin Feng closed his eyes and felt an inexplicable water fortune being devoured by his own fortune, turning into nourishment for him. Rumble! The dark clouds that had enveloped hundreds of thousands of miles in the sky began to dissipate, and the terrifying atmosphere began to dissipate. For a time, many onlookers stared at the black-clothed youth in the middle of Oblivion Valley in shock. To be able to kill a water-type quasi-emperor so easily, They were probably stronger than a quasi-emperor. With such strength, he could definitely be ranked as one of the top existences in the world. He just didn't know where this black-robed youth came from. However, it wouldn't be long before his identity would be known by everyone. Such a terrifying powerhouse was definitely not a nameless person. Within the crowd, there were two figures who were quietly retreating. Qin Feng noticed it immediately. "The two of you, please wait." Qin Feng spoke softly. In a flash, he appeared before the two of them. The Holy Water Elder and the Dragon King of the Azure Sea. At this moment, the two experts' expressions were somewhat ugly. Qin Feng didn't pay attention to these two people. His gaze swept across and fell on the depths of the dust cloud not far away. With a wave of his sleeve, a stream of light fell into his hand. It was a water-type divine weapon ranked 11th on the All Heavens Divine Weapon list, the Waterscape Diffraction Sword. Since the Sky River Evil Ancestor was dead, this sword naturally lost its owner. "This sword is just right to be my sword." Qin Feng's lips curled into a gentle smile. Everyone's expression changed slightly as they looked at the Waterscape Diffraction Sword in the black-clothed youth's hand. A strange look flickered in their eyes. The Waterscape Diffraction Sword was one of the few peerless divine weapons on the All Heavens Divine Weapon list. It was extremely sharp. It was also full of mysteries. For a water-type cultivator, if they could wield this sword, it would be easy for them to fight above their level. If it were an ordinary person, the many experts watching in secret would definitely not let it go. However, the black-clothed youth in front of them was a true fiend. A supreme existence at the quasi-emperor level was cut into several pieces by his sword. Everyone couldn't even dodge in time, let alone snatch the treasure. This Waterscape Diffraction Sword was magnificent. The sword's body was icy blue, like pure and flawless waterlight. The sword's body was slender, like liquid. Holding the sword hilt, Qin Feng felt as if he was holding a boundless ocean. He could easily control thousands of waters, rivers, and seas through this Waterscape Diffraction Sword. The Holy Water Elder and the Dragon King of the Azure Sea looked at this mysterious black-clothed youth as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The two of them had fought with the Sky River Evil Ancestor before. They knew very well how powerful the Sky River Evil Ancestor was and how difficult it was to deal with him. Even Heavenly Venerable Ice River, a famous ice-type king of an era, was killed with one sword strike. However, in just an instant, the Sky River Evil Ancestor was killed by this mysterious black-clothed youth. Even the Sky River Evil Ancestor was no match for this person. Obviously, the two of them were no match for this mysterious black-clothed youth. Qin Feng didn't seem to notice the nervous expressions of the Holy Water Elder and the Dragon King of the Azure Sea. His gaze fell on the Waterscape Diffraction Sword in his hand, and a hint of a cold smile flashed in his eyes. Sizzle! Sizzle! An ink-like sinister aura was born in the Waterscape Diffraction Sword. As if it knew that it had been discovered, a monstrous sword light flew out like ink and turned into a torrential rain that enveloped Qin Feng. The Sky River Evil Ancestor's remnant soul imprint was in this sword? The Holy Water Elder and the Dragon King of the Azure Sea's eyes lit up when they saw this. Their expressions changed slightly, and a trace of killing intent appeared in their eyes as they stared at the black-clothed youth. A chance? However, the moment this ink-like horrifying sword light left Qin Feng's face, an indescribably horrifying aura appeared, and time and space in all directions seemed to freeze. A terrifying divine power that was above all the worlds appeared around the black-clothed youth, and time and space within a radius of 10,000 miles froze for a moment. The Holy Water Elder and the Dragon King of the Azure Sea were horrified. They didn't know when, but they found that they were like ants in the tide of gravity, and they couldn't move at all. A huge pressure pressed down on them, and they felt that their bones and even their souls would collapse at any time. The Heavenly Way's space-time power? Far away, on the mountain peak, Wang Daoi's eyes flashed with a strange light as he felt the strange, primitive, and terrifying pressure coming from the mountain peak. He had long since noticed this extremely powerful and wondrous power. He had a guess before, but he didn't dare to be sure. Now he was sure. This was the heavenly ways space-time divine power that only the overgods had. What a mysterious guy. He can actually control the heavenly ways space-time power. He looked slightly serious. The heavenly ways space-time power was something that he hadn't comprehended even after reincarnating 10 times. It was extremely difficult to comprehend the heavenly ways space-time power. Unless one reached the peak of the heaven-defying Great Emperor realm, or if one was lucky enough to upgrade their divine kingdom to the overgod space, they might be able to obtain a part of the heavenly ways space-time power. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible. With the heavenly ways space-time power, it was no wonder that this junior brother of the sect master could easily kill people of the same level as him. Wang Daoi was a little envious. Comprehending the heavenly ways space-time power in advance wasn't as simple as just increasing one's combat strength. The space-time divine energy of the heavenly Tao enveloped the water-seen diffraction sword like a clear stream. Accompanied by shrill and invisible screams, the sword energy that was as dense as water transformed into one distorted face after another, and wisps of black gas were expelled. As the Sky River Evil Ancestor's remnant soul imprint in the aquascape diffraction sword was completely purified, Qin Feng grabbed the hilt of the aquascape diffraction sword in the void. He looked at the Holy Water Elder and the Dragon King of the Azure Sea with a deep look in his eyes. You two should know what I mean. There is only one master for all the water veins in the Spirit Sea continent. Make a choice. Surrender or die. Chapter 1282. Qin Feng had long since expressed his determination to unify the water lineage. The more experts he subdued, the stronger the water lineage fortune he gathered, and the higher the chances of becoming a water lineage master god. This was proportional. The Azure Sea Dragon King was a water lineage quasi-emperor, so the water lineage fortune he gathered was much stronger than ordinary people. The Divine Water Elder was an ancient unaffiliated person, so he also had a part of the ancient water lineage fortune. It would have been fine if he hadn't encountered him, but since he had, Qin Feng definitely wouldn't let him go. The powerful quasi-emperor aura was emitted, and the divine light from the master god's space descended. The black-clothed youth's aura skyrocketed. It was almost comparable to the fifth step of the heaven-defying Great Emperor realm. Seeing this scene, many water-type experts who were secretly thinking about whether they could take advantage of the situation were aghast. Many of them left without thinking. If they continued to stay here and waited for the black-clothed youth to subdue the dragon race quasi-emperor, the Divine Water Elder wouldn't let them go. Qin Feng sensed the departure of these people. There were many water-type experts, including many water-type quasi-deities. Among them, there were 1 or 2 extremely mysterious water-type kings. However, in Qin Feng's eyes, these were all small fries. The water lineage quasi-emperor in front of him was the real big fish. Subduing this dragon quasi-emperor was comparable to subduing 10 water-type kings. The Divine Water Elder and the Azure Sea Dragon King's expressions were gloomy, fearful, and furious. The two of them wanted to leave, but the power emitted by the other party made them very clear that they were no match for the black-clothed youth. If they fled, there would only be one result. However, if they surrendered, the price would be too heavy. The two of them were experts from the ancient era. Heaven knew how much effort they had spent since they sealed themselves. It was already a great fortune that they didn't die in the process. He had paid such a huge price and taken such a huge risk, all for the sake of obtaining the top innate origin deity position. Once they surrendered, the two of them would have no chance of obtaining the first type of innate water-type origin god position. Qin Feng seemed to have seen the unwillingness in their hearts. Why do you two have to do this? Sometimes there's no need to talk about god positions when you don't even have your life. Our pursuit is eternal. Their expressions changed slightly. Qin Feng looked at the expressions of the two experts and said with a smile, "Actually, it's not a bad choice for you to follow me, especially you, Dragon King of the Azure Sea. I'm the first-generation dragon ancestor of the dragons. It's not wrong for you to submit to me." As soon as he finished speaking, a trace of the first dragon ancestor's aura leaked from Qin Feng's body. "You are the dragon ancestor?" The Dragon King of the Azure Sea shuddered. Then, she sensed the wisp of ancestral aura from the source of the ancient dragon vein leaking out of Qin Feng's body. The bloodline in her body trembled slightly, and a terrifying feeling of being suppressed came over her. She took a deep breath. She was also an innate dragon race bloodline within 3 generations. Only the more powerful dragon ancestor could suppress her Dragon King bloodline. Most of the resistance in her heart disappeared. Submitting to a human powerhouse was a humiliation to the proud dragon clan. However, it would be different if the target was the dragon ancestor. For the lower-level dragons to submit to the higher-level dragons, this was the natural order of the dragon bloodline. However, the Dragon King of the Azure Sea still had some concerns. Deity position. With her strength, she might have been able to reach the acquired or middle deity position long ago. If it wasn't for the innate origin deity position, she might have become a true god dozens of eras ago. For this goal, she had persevered for dozens of eras. It was not easy for her to encounter such a great era. If she submitted to the dragon ancestor, all her efforts would be in vain. When Qin Feng saw the cold Dragon King of the Azure Sea lowering her head in deep thought, he guessed the dragon race boundary emperor's concerns. He immediately smiled. "You don't have to worry. The fate tribute is only to determine the master. I haven't fallen to the point of extracting the fate of my subordinate. I won't hide it from you. My divine kingdom has already been upgraded to the overgod space, and I can already travel through the major realms. Do you think I still need to squeeze my subordinates dry?" Although Qin Feng transmitted his voice, he did not hide it from the holy water elder beside him. At this moment, the ancient independent cultivator's eyes were filled with astonishment. The Dragon King of the Azure Sea's eyes were also filled with disbelief. The overgod space was exclusive to the overgods since ancient times. Only the overgods could control a part of the mysteries of space-time and travel through the depths of space-time without restraint. Instinctively, the Dragon King of the Azure Sea and the Holy Water Elder did not believe it. However, they soon understood. Clearly, the power Qin Feng used to suppress them was the power of spacetime. Only the heavenly Tao's power of spacetime possessed by the overgod could render them defenseless. Their expressions changed. They were a little tempted. With the overgod space, the black-robed young man's chances of becoming a rank 16 overgod in this era were probably much higher than most people. Following a future sovereign was definitely not a loss for the two of them. On the contrary, this was definitely something that would make any true god envious and jealous. "I'm willing to submit to the Dragon Ancestor and serve under the Dragon Ancestor." The Dragon King of the Azure Sea made her decision and expressed her determination instantly. She took a few steps forward and knelt down on one knee in front of Qin Feng. The Holy Water Elder also stepped forward and knelt down on one knee like the Azure Sea Dragon King. The Holy Water Elder greets the Overgod. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes slightly. He could feel 2 majestic water vein fortunes merging with the red river of providence from the void. His control over the power of the water of heaven and earth seemed to have become much smoother. Vaguely, his divine soul seemed to be able to sense that a few unknown existences had appeared above the river of destiny and had formed a connection with him. Deity positions, water deity positions. It seemed that as he devoured the water vein fortunes of the sky river evil ancestor, the holy water elder, and the dragon king of the azure sea, his karma with those water deity positions had increased greatly. As long as he needed them, those water deity positions would be at his fingertip. After sensing carefully, Qin Feng gave up on trying to obtain those deity positions. What a pity! They all seemed to be acquired water deity positions. Qin Feng shook his head. However, there was a hint of joy in his eyes. Although he did not plan to obtain acquired deity positions, this was still a significant improvement. He was finally able to sense the existence of water deity positions after the star deity positions. In the future, as long as he continued to gather the corresponding fortunes, he might be able to sense the existence of a culmination deity position or an innate origin deity position. He looked around and closed his eyes slightly. He locked onto a huge deity nation. The Sky River Evil Ancestors Deity Nation. Although that deity nation was destroyed, it was still a deity nation. It could be used as food in the overgod space. After digesting it, it could be used as a subsidiary trial plane. After dealing with the Sky River Evil Ancestor, Qin Feng called out to Wang Daoi and returned to Xingqian School with the Dragon King of the Azure Sea and the Holy Water Elder. Not long after he left, a stream of light flew into the ruined Oblivion Valley. This person was none other than the Water Monarch, who attracted the extreme Yang Ancestor and scared away the Blood Hell Evil Ancestor. Sensing the special fluctuations left in the surrounding void, this mysterious young man's eyes flickered with a strange light. The space-time power of the heavenly Tao? After pondering for a moment, he smiled faintly. Fine. I'll leave the waterscape diffraction sword with you for now. However, I, the Sky River, will retrieve this sword one day. With a flash, he turned into a stream of water light and disappeared from where he was. Chapter 1283. For more than half a month, the Spirit Sea continent was not peaceful. The failure of another Tao affirmation cultivator made many experts rejoice, but at the same time, there was no lack of sorrow. The Sky River Evil Ancestor was extraordinary. He was a water-type boundary emperor. Even a boundary emperor died in the hands of someone who blocked the path. This poured a huge bucket of cold water on some people who wanted to take the opportunity to affirm their Tao, completely waking them up. Even some experts who had obtained the acquired divine position suppressed the urge to reach the Tao integration stage. The undercurrents of many forces were surging. There were also many tyrannical experts who secretly sped up the merger and swallowed the other forces. Many ancient experts were also shaken. They appeared everywhere and destroyed some of the sects, collecting the fate energy needed to affirm their Tao as soon as possible. Among the 72 mysterious sects, many of them were affected by the aftermath. They were in a precarious situation, or they were simply destroyed and withdrew from their position as the overlords of the spirit realm. However, in a short period of time, no experts dared to pay attention to the many spirit realms around the realm of stars, because there was a peerless existence here that could kill a boundary emperor. The primeval heavenly king. Xingqian School, above the Lingshao Hall. The sun, moon, and stars shone here, and the rich starlight was extremely intense. There were countless Xingqian School formations around it, forming a huge star formation. The Great Star God Formation. The mountains were linked together, and through Qin Feng's guidance, the power of many stars in the world. The surging starlight origin energy here was beyond the imagination of many Xingqian School experts. On the central throne, Qin Feng's divine consciousness guided the Sky River Divine Kingdom, and the refinement of the Sky River Evil Ancestors Divine Kingdom was also coming to an end. This huge divine kingdom was finally digested and sent into the Star River, becoming a subsidiary star of the primeval Master Star. In essence, this divine kingdom was damaged by the big explosion, and its value was not great. It was suitable to send it into the star river and become a subsidiary star of the primeval master star. It could help the primeval master star absorb the power of chaos outside the realm and further accelerate its evolution. In the future, if it was properly arranged, it could even become a trial ground for the disciples of Xingqian school. It was a waste recycling. There's such a thing. Qin Feng waved his sleeve, and an icy blue light radiated from his sleeve. A pearl floated in the air, and in the middle of it, there was a water-type law that was clearly different from this world. Who would have thought that I would be able to obtain the sea god's heart in such a way? Neptune's heart. This was a treasure formed after the death of the sea god from another world. In the later generations, it also left behind a lot of water-type treasures. Qin Feng had once coveted this treasure in order to cultivate his water attribute cultivation method. However, the whereabouts of this treasure were elusive, and there was no news of its whereabouts. Thus, he put it aside and turned his attention to the third sword ancestor. He released the third sword ancestor and obtained the number 1 spatial technique, the dark space creation art. For this reason, he had paid quite a price. The Sansheng stone and the tear of the underworld emperor were the treasures that could gather souls for the condensed jade incense. Qin Feng released his divine thought. The sea god's heart clearly contained a water-type law power that was different from this world, and it seemed to be very rich. I can give it to the creator space to analyze or refine it. Let's see what kind of treasure it is. He casually stored it in the creator space. Qin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. Although the water-type law of another world was definitely not the same as the water-type law of this world, he could draw inferences from it and obtain another type of comprehension that was different from this world's water-type law. This would be very beneficial to the Tao of Creator, and it could be used as a resource. This time, Qin Feng could be said to have gained a lot from his trip to block the path. He had gained a lot. But if we were to talk about the biggest gain this time, it would probably be this. On the throne, Qin Feng revealed a slight smile at the corner of his eyes. He stretched out a hand, and there seemed to be a pitch-black stream of light dancing and spinning on his palm. It was like a pitch-black spirit snake, spinning rapidly around his palm, cutting through space and time. Its speed was so fast that space and time seemed to be blurred. The 13th water-type heavenly law, 9 underworlds destruction. This was a water-type heavenly law of the 9 great Khanate primordial waters, comprehended by Deshang of the 9 underworlds black water. He had obtained the 9 underworlds black waters extremely destructive arcana. In addition, Qin Feng had obtained a part of the Sky River evil ancestors' arcana essence of the Sky River's path of destruction. The two combined to form this heavenly law. This was considered a heavenly law that covered a large area. It was not suitable for single target attacks, but it was extremely suitable as a means of destruction. After comprehending this heavenly law, Qin Feng had basically dabbled in the 9 great Khanate primordial waters, 9 underworlds, extreme een, star, sky, cosmic light, azura, 9 suns, all spirits, and 1 origin. These 9 heavenly laws were Deshang's. Only the azura and 9 suns innate primordial waters were left untouched. Next, Qin Feng's attention was placed on the azura blood river primordial water. The azura blood river primordial water leaned towards the een side. Qin Feng controlled the underworld and had personally opened the endless blood river. He had comprehended the mysteries within and was more proficient in this aspect. As for the 9 suns primordial water, it would be the 15th and final water-type heavenly law. With 15 water-type heavenly laws combined, Qin Feng would establish the final foundation to become a water-type overgod. The pitch-black 9 underworlds heavenly river in his hand gradually disappeared into his body as his divine power converged. Next, I have to quickly gather the water-type and star-type destinies and increase my own destinies as soon as possible to sense the innate water origin deity position, or the innate origin star deity position. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. At this moment, several footsteps came from outside the hall. In Qin Feng's eyes, 5 figures entered the Lingxiao Palace from the entrance of the palace. Just as Qin Feng was filled with ambition and wanted to repeat the success of the primordial chaos Xingqian school, in a huge province south of the realm of stars and many other spirit regions, something that greatly affected the various forces in the Spirit Sea continent, or rather, the Xingqian school, was happening. Heavenly Spirit Region. The newly built Tianliang City. It was located at the border between the Heavenly Spirit Region and the Sun-Moon Spirit Region. The overlord of the Heavenly Spirit Region was the Tianliang sect, which was ranked 54th among the 72 mysterious sections. The overlord of the Sun-Moon Spirit Region was the Sun-Moon Sword sect, which was ranked 39th. Today, the Tianliang sect and the Sun-Moon Sword sect completed the merger of the two sects under the leadership of 2 powerful figures in Tianliang City. They were reinstated as the Primordial Chaos Xingqian School. When the name was reinstated as the Primordial Chaos Xingqian School, the 2 powerful figures from the Tianliang sect and the Sun-Moon Sword sect immediately made a joint decision. The first target was the Primordial Chaos Xingqian School, the overlord of the Primordial Chaos Spirit Region, the Primordial Chaos Sword sect. Their purpose was clear: to reunite the Primordial Chaos Xingqian School and unify the destiny of the lineage of stars. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.